Welcome to the December 14 Metropolitan Area Planning Commission meeting. This time I'll call on announcements.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the District Court.
Thank you. Now could we have roll call?
Yes, sir. Dool.
Here.
Foster.
Here.
McKay.
Here.
Green is absent. Bill Johnson.
Here.
Blick is absent. Nix.
Here.
Fox.
Here.
Warren is absent. Joe Johnson is absent. Miles.
Present.
Zimbelman. Aldrich.
Here.
Williams Bay.
Here.
Thank you. I believe we have a quorum. Now we call for approval of the minutes of the MAPC meeting on November 9. I show that McKay, Green, and Nix were absent at that meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Fox and a second from
It's Miles.
Miles. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The next item is for approval of the minutes of the December 28th meeting, and that is being deferred, the meeting of November 30th is being deferred to December 28th. So we'll vote on that later. There are no BZA cases today. Now we will consider which cases we can take on approval, consent. First case is sub 2023-00053. We will hear that case. There's some clarification we need to have on that. The next case is sub 2023-00054. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public that wants to hear that case? It's Margie Cognac Edition, 21st and near 129th Street West. Is there anyone from the public present? If not, we'll take that on consent. The next case is sub 2023-00055, one-step final plat on Victor Landing Edition. Does anyone on the commission want to hear that case? Is there anyone present and from the public that wants to hear that case? We'll hear that case. The next case is sub 2023-00056, one-step final plat, Wichita Concrete Pipe, second edition. Anyone on the commission want to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public that wants to hear that case? We'll take that on consent. Could I have a motion for approval of
Move to approve items 2.2 and 2.4 per staff comments.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Fox and a second by Miles. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to public hearing. Vacation item. First one is vacation 2023-00044. That is on the west side of MacArthur Road and Southwest Street. Anyone on the commission want to hear that case? Is there anyone present from the public that wants to hear that case? We'll take that on consent. Next is vacation 2023-00046. That is located at North Brown Thrush Lane and West Fraser Lane. Anyone on the commission want to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public that wants to hear that case? If not, we'll take that on consent. The next case is vacation 00047. It's near East Broadway and West Topeka, north of Waterman. Is there anyone on the commission that wants to hear that case? Anyone from the public that would like to hear that case? If not, we'll take that one on consent.
Move to approve 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3 per staff comments.
Second.
We have a motion from Foster and a second from Cox. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to public hearings. First case is Con 2023-00057. It's conditional use located near 29th Street North and Southwest Street, I believe, yes. Is there anyone from the commission that would like to hear that case? let the record show that Mr. Green joined us. Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear that case?
Just to clarify, is this the one regarding the 499-foot wireless radio tower?
Yes.
Do you want to hear that case? Okay. Anyone from the public want to hear that case here? If not, we'll take that on consent. The next case has been withdrawn by the applicant, so we'll skip that. Next is Con 2023-00059, conditional use request. And it is located at 21st Street and North Broadway. Anyone on the council want to hear that case?
Yes.
Okay, we'll hear it. Next is Con 2023-00060. It's a conditional use in the county at 215th West Street and 37th Street North. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear that case? Is there anyone present from the public that would like to hear that case?
Yes.
Okay, we'll hear that case. Next is Con 2023-00061, located on the north side of Emporia and near 10th Street North. Is there anyone on the council that commission, that wants to hear that case? Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this case? We'll take that one on consent. Next is CUP 2023-00040. It's a minor amendment in the city to a CUP located at North Rock Road and west side of K96, right. Does anyone on the council on the commission want to hear that case? Yes. We will hear that case. Next is PUD 2023-00014, zone change request involving Century 2. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear that case?
I've got a staff question on that.
Okay, let me see. Is there anyone from the public that would like to hear this case? Okay, if not, would you like to go ahead and ask your staff question?
Sure. The question I have is, what has precipitated the necessity of having this changed from the Central Business District to PUD? The reason why I ask is it looks like the proposed use is for temporary special events, which that entire area has been involved with temporary special events for a long time. And I'm just trying to figure out what's precipitated the need to do that.
Great question. Turns out that there's a new type of special event that would like to take place, and that is a convention that does tattooing. And Central Business District prohibits tattooing. And so in order to allow for that, they've been advised that PUD would give them that flexibility. And so it's been crafted in a way that the city council would have to approve it, and it opens it up to more uses than just tattooing, but if there were any other uses that the council wanted to consider that were a temporary nature with a finite end date, that would be possible under the PUD.
Okay, so it will not have any effect on any other special events that have been conducted in that area for a long time?
Correct. Events like Riverfest will be able to continue.
That's a great option. Thank you.
But it would allow any events not currently allowed by right to go to the city council for approval, correct? Okay.
That is correct. They'd have to have a certain end date that would have to be determined by the city council.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Does
Appreciate
anyone
that.
from the public want to hear that case? If not, we'll take that on consent. Okay, the next case is zoning 00065, zone change request in the city at East Tyler Road and 29th Street North. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Anyone from the public want to hear this case? Yes. We'll hear this case. Next is zoning 00066, zone change request in the city on South Hosey Street and South Santa Fe. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Is there anyone present from the public that would like to hear this case? If not, we'll take that on consent. And finally, we have zoning 00067. It's a combination of 3 CUP cases as well. It's a zone change from LC to GC General Commercial with CUP major amendment, et cetera, generally located on East Kellogg and west of South Webb Road. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Is there anyone from the public present that would like to hear this case? We will hear this case.
Move to approve 4.1, 4.5, 4.7, and 4.9 per staff comments.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Foster and a second by Mr. Williams Bay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
To item 2.3. 2.1, we have some clarification on that.
Yep. Good afternoon, Greg Sharon, planning staff, presenting KWH4 addition. This is a 3-lot residential subdivision in the county and within the city of Wichita 3-mile ring. Next screen, please. And next screen. This is the preliminary plat. Next screen. Reason that we called for this to be reviewed because there's some clarification and some discussion that will be needed for item B, county stormwater management. I had passed out a letter that we received yesterday afternoon from adjacent property owners with some concerns about drainage going onto their property from this proposed subdivision. I know that county stormwater has been reviewing that and has asked for additional easements and also for some berms and existing swales to remain on site. So I just want to have that clarification, and the applicant can further discuss what has been taking place regarding the drainage for this property. So if there's any other additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yes, Mr. Aldridge.
How's the county storm management? Have they approved the drainage plan yet?
Like I said, they're in the talks of working with the adjacent property owners, and they have requested some additional notes to be put on the subdivision plat regarding ditches and berms and terraces to remain as part of the drainage plan. But my initial is that that's still in the process of being approved.
Okay, so
And
we're,
I believe that's county stormwater is here, so they can further clarify that.
okay, so
for
we're
you.
supposed to approve or this or not approve it, and we don't have a drainage plan submitted or approved yet, correct?
Regarding whether you can or cannot, is that your question?
I just want to make sure that all the ducks are lined up and that there is going to be an approved drainage plan. But I guess we can approve this, if we go that way, subject to the approval of the.
Right, yeah, and I know that the email that I got from county stormwater is that they recommend that it not be recorded until all those issues are addressed. So you can approve it pending, final approval until all those are addressed. We won't record it until all those drainage plans issues are addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Nix? Sir?
I think he's going to
Sir?
address my question.
Are you the agent or applicant?
No, I'm the stormwater engineer.
He's stormwater. That's
County.
was going to be my question.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Let's hear from Stormwater.
Yeah, sorry. Scott Lindeback, Sedgwick County Stormwater Manager. The drainage plan has not been approved. We had received a drainage plan on December 6th, the day before subdivision committee. Hadn't been able to fully look at it. Have looked at it and have made some 7 recommended changes or that need to be addressed. I feel comfortable talking with the agent this morning that if these issues are addressed, that the drainage plan can be approved, but I didn't feel comfortable with giving a formal approval until I see a copy of the drainage plan. The applicant's engineer has not been able to implement the changes as of this time.
Thank you. I apologize for not recognizing you.
No,
Mr. Nix, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to hear from what he had to say. So
Any other questions of staff on this? If not, we'll call on the agent or applicant to speak. Please give us your name and address. You'll have 10 minutes.
Dan Garber, Garber Surveying Service, 2908 North Plum Street in Hutchinson. We've been working on this subdivision for a little while, and it was, the access being along the north 40 feet was contingent upon the county acquiring a little strip along this east side here. It's kind of a complicated thing because there was a piece of property on the west side of 151st that's owned by the owner on the east side. And so the county was hoping to acquire that would allow our entrance in at the north 40 feet. That didn't occur, so we have moved the entrance south of the end of that strip. That will improve our drainage because we'll have a pipe underneath this driveway, and it'll give us over 100 feet of space to the north where the drainage will disperse out and it will not be a channel. There's a terrace that runs along this diagonal utility easement line, and so our water will stay west of that and flow where it currently flows. So we're really not changing too much drainage, except this property, adjacent property to the south and east, gets quite a bit of water that comes down off of this hill to the west. And we have agreed to put in a swale and a berm along his west property line on our property that will divert the water north and around and into this terrace holding area, and then on to the north where it currently goes. The water from Lot 2 that currently goes north-northeast will continue just across the gravel driveway that will be put in there. So I think we've addressed everything on the subdivision committee staff comments, and we're in agreement with the 7 items that we've talked about with Scott Lindeback yesterday and today. I'm sorry we don't have a drainage plan ready. It was just too late. I think the earlier drainage plan that we had preliminary approval, but after a meeting with the neighbors and some concerns that were expressed, we decided to try to accommodate those as much as we could. I would stand for any questions.
Are there any questions from the commission? Thank you. Is there anyone present from the public that would like to speak on this case? Please approach the podium, give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Ready? Okay. My name is Ronald Steinke. I live at 15509 West 47th Street South. I'm the owner of the adjacent farmland north of the proposed KWH4 addition. The land has been in my family for 100 years. I've lived on the land during my youth, helped my uncle farm the land, built my current home on a portion of the land in 1977, and inherited the land from my uncle when he passed. I'm very familiar with where the water flows on that land and the various terrace structures that were built to control the flow. The farmland is currently rented and farmed by the same family that has rented it and farmed it since the mid-1980s. I would like to continue this farm arrangement and avoid creating issues that would make the area unsuitable for a farming operation. In light of this, I would like the Planning Commission to ensure me that the changes to the storm drainage areas proposed by KWH will not impact my farmland by artificially increasing water flow, washing out existing structures or turning them into ditches, create bogs or wet spots, or remove existing structures with unknown consequences. I attended a meeting with Scott Lindeback yesterday, December 13th, and voiced a number of concerns I had with preliminary storm drainage plans. First, the entrance at that time had not been established. Second, the easement requested has not been presented to me, and if it was, I wasn't intending on signing it. Initially, they requested an easement, and for some reason, it's no longer needed. I'm aware that I cannot impede the natural flow of water and have no intention of doing so. The 1,400-foot-long east-west road easement will impede the natural flow of water to the north and increase the water flow to the east, culminating in a terrace structure north of Lot 3. Any increase in water flow or rate has serious implications on the Hatcher property. Increased water flow increases the chance of terrace washout or overflow, resulting in property damage. The terrace was not designed to handle this additional water flow. Any proposed drainage channels needed to spread the water before it reaches to my property to prevent turning the terrace into a ditch or farmland gullies. There's an existing structure on Lot 1 that is not mentioned in the KWH proposal. This terrace currently drains onto my land. Change in land use will affect what drains onto my property. Removing the terrace, if not done correctly, will cause serious erosion to the north along my property line. These concerns were not addressed at the preliminary storm drainage planning meeting or subsequent suggested last-minute notifications that I became aware of this morning. I believe these issues should be dealt with before the plat request is approved. Platting is a benefit to KWH and should not be a burden to the existing and adjacent landowners or persons who purchase this property. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this case? Please approach the podium and give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Heather Hatcher, and I live at 5065 South 151st Street West, Clearwater. I am an adjacent landowner, and in addition to Ronald Steinke's previous comments, I would like to add that our concern with this drainage is also because it floods to the north of our property, which leaves us only one means of egress to the south. So we're just concerned with how this water is going to flow. If additional water flows out to the road, there's no ditch, and what that happens to the road between this new development and our property. And would just like to be made aware of any plans going forward, because like he mentioned, I was not aware of this plan or this request for easement until 2 days ago. Thank you. And it's Heather Hatcher, 5065 South 151st Street West, case SUB 2023-0053.
Ma'am, where exactly is your property located?
My property is right here. Ronald Steinke's property is right here. There's a narrow strip, and that's the new addition.
Okay, thank you.
And the flooding occurs here completely across the road with minimal rain, 2 inches and it will flood. Sorry. Do I need to explain that again?
Yes, please. For the record, it won't show up in the recording.
Okay,
Ma'am,
well, it's
could
hard
you
to
use
point
the,
over there
Could you
with.
use the mouse to show us?
Yeah, okay, sorry. This is my property here. Steinke property is here. And flooding occurs across the road regularly with several inches of rain so that it is impassable. There is no ditch here. It gets deeper in front of our property, but along this section, there is really no ditch there. So my concern is, without seeing the updated water management plan, you know, what is going to happen with any additional drainage out to this road area?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this case? Please approach the podium and give us your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Wayne Peterson, and I am the one to the south right here. And anyway, what the deal is, I've sent pictures to just about everybody, and all the water that comes from here comes through my property, right? That's my barn there, and here, and it goes up to this terrace right here. And this all floods in a 2-inch rain. And I mean, this was back in May, just the 2-inch rain. But in 08, when we had that 8-inch, 10-inch rain, whatever, I mean, my whole property, all the way up to my house, was almost flooded. So, I mean, if you can assure me that all this drainage is going to take place, then it's okay. But otherwise, I don't know what kind of legal action I can take to stop it, but that's the way it is.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this? Please approach the podium, give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Brooks St. John, 5067 South 157th Street West, Clearwater. If you can tell, we have flooding problems. I own the property to the west here, and this isn't up to date, but I own the property to the north as well. Everything from here over runs to my property. There is an extreme amount of flooding. I spent 2 days this spring reworking terraces and land here, trying to control it. This becomes a huge funnel right here, and will eat through my crop ground in a matter of minutes in the littlest bit of rain. I'm worried what they're gonna do with this to control that. I'm worried they're gonna take these terraces out and make it even harder on me to control my erosion down there. The only other thing that concerns me is, how do I go back a screen? The easement, the first print they sent to us a month ago, we had time to look it over, the engineers had time to look it over. This new one, they sent in a matter of 2 hours ago. We haven't had time to look at it. My engineers haven't had time to look at it. Nobody has.
There's your previous screen.
Thank you, thank you. This was not what we were shown and had a chance to talk with Scott and everybody over. This showed up 2 hours ago. So I haven't even had a chance to look at this proposal. It may be great, I don't know. But what I'm saying is I'd like some time to at least look it over and have my engineers look it over. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this case? Please approach the podium and give us your name and address. You have 3 minutes, and I would admonish you to make sure we're not repeating issues that have already been discussed.
My name is Randy Weir. I live at 5130 South 151st Street West, which is, no, I'm lost. The other map that we had up just before it's right here. This is my property here. At the risk of repeating a little bit, Heather spoke a little bit about the flooding here when we get a 2-inch rain. This road is completely impassable. The road maintenance guys, I think, are the ones that put up the signs that it's impassable. But also with that rain, it floods this side. I built in 1980, and I've seen, more than a dozen times where this is completely impassable, where you can't pass through it at all. But also at this end, so I don't know if any more water is going to be diverted over that way, but or this way. But everybody that lives in this area here can't get out either way. Maybe with 4-wheel drive out this way, definitely not this way. So that's all I've got to add.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this case? If not, we will bring it back to the agent or applicant. You will have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
We're talking about building 3 houses out in the middle of 22 acres. And we're not planning to change the drainage patterns except to intercept the water west of Mr. Peterson's property and try to improve his drainage and the flooding in his backyard. The other ones, the drainage pattern will continue as it is with minimal increase of runoff, only to like 3 rooftops and driveways. So we don't intend to go out there and add to any flooding situations or remove any terraces. In fact, we've been asked to keep the terrace at the east end, and that's why the gentleman has not been asked for an easement, because the water will leave our property at the surface, and that's the natural course where it goes now. So we think we've addressed the concerns. The drainage plan should be ready in the next few days, I believe. And so we'd really like to have the plat approved, subject to the drainage plan being approved by the floodplain engineer. Thank you.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the commission. Any discussion on this case? Hearing none, I will call for a vote, and all those in favor?
Need a motion.
Oh, we need a motion, yeah. We have a motion.
Do the neighbors get a chance to see the final survey so that they can be comfortable that the changes are approved? Is that a part of the process normally?
In this case, I will share the drainage plan, the final drainage plan with the neighbors. I've met with them a couple days ago and shared with them what the best information I had. The drainage engineer had originally planned on getting an off-site drainage agreement from Ron Steike, but because they were going to not improve the drain, they were wanting to improve the drainage and increase the capacity on their own site, but in this case, they're going to match existing grades and try to basically have as minimal impact on his property as possible. That's the reason why they shifted that drive 100 feet off the property line.
Kirk Sponsel, Deputy County Counselor. If I could, just for clarification on the practice, concerning this drainage plan, with the drainage plan, when you're reviewing these proposals, are you trying to make them consistent with the subdivision regulations and with the drainage regulations incorporated therein?
Not just the subdivision regulations, but the Sedgwick County Stormwater Manual, trying to be consistent with that, not requiring any more burdensome regulations than already exist.
Okay, and just for clarification, you indicate in this case you would show the potential new drainage plan to the neighbors. Ultimately, does discretion rest with you? And are you just looking for input from them for terms of your analysis, or what's that interaction?
I just want to share with them with what the plan that I feel comfortable approving, and let them see it and know that what's being proposed. Ultimately, there's no floodplain on this property. It is a lot of surface water runoff, and so I'm respectful and understand and appreciate their concerns and want them to be aware of what's being proposed. And just after listening to them, understood the value of keeping those terraces in place. Typically, on rural subdivisions like this, we would take the terraces out. But since this impacts multiple people, it was best to leave them in place. But yes, we'll share it with them as a courtesy to the process.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Since the county and the applicant are working well with the neighbors, I would move to approve the plat with the understanding the drainage plan is going to get approved before it's actually final.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bill Johnson, second by Mr. Aldrich. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
With the conditions as stated. Okay, the next case is sub 2023-00055.
Good afternoon, Greg Sharon, planning staff. Here this afternoon to present Victor Landing addition. This is an 8-lot residential subdivision in the county within the 3-mile ring. Just go through staff comments real quick. This is in Rural Water District number 3. Item A, a memo is needed from MAPC if they're connecting to the water district and soils work to be completed. Item C, there are proposed lagoons on these lots. Potentially, the regulations require 5 acres. However, the building department code is now 3 acres, but since subdivision regulations require 5, a waiver from that 5-acre requirement will be needed from the Planning Commission. Item F, the subdivision regulations require pavement of the road up to a paved arterial road. Since the addition of these 8 lots will be over the 200 cars per day limit. So therefore, the county work request, in order to offset the cost, $950 fee per acre for pavement of roadways in the county. Item H, no protest agreement for future extension of sanitary sewer. Item J, access controls, next screen. And then the next screen. Subdivision regulations require connection to unplatted property. There is unplatted property to the north, and that has been provided to the north. However, to the east, to the west is unplatted, and that connection has not been included in this plat. Therefore, a waiver is requested to not provide that connection to unplatted property to the west. And it should be noted that we just heard from, regarding item N, just heard from GIS that they are requesting a name change from Datvu Street, and the applicant has requested, I guess, Victoria Street. So we are just waiting to hear from GIS to see if that street name is acceptable. If there's any questions.
Yes, Mr. Aldridge.
During subdivision, it was brought up that the request for the applicant to do some testing, whether or not laterals and septic would be, could work on this property instead of lagoons.
Right.
Do you know if that's still gonna occur, or that's still part of the request?
I don't know where they are in the process, but they are required to do soil tests and submit those to building department so they can determine what appropriate septic system can be allowed within the property.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? If not, we'll call on the agent or applicant. You'll have 10 minutes. Please state your name and address. Do we have an agent or applicant present? Mr.
Since we
Johnson.
heard this case last week and it was approved 6-0, I can see why he's probably not here, but I'm curious who wants to speak on the item. We'll hear from him.
Okay, so we'll call on, do we have the agent or applicant? Okay, we'll call on the public, or do you want to defer this case until the agent and applicant are present? What's your wish on this case? We have counsel.
Kirk Sponsel, Deputy County Counselor. It sounds like we're still not certain about the agent or applicant's status. And so if I may, an opportunity would potentially be to have public comment today and potentially consider evaluating the case or deferring it to a separate day. Alternatively, if it were the will of the board, you could potentially defer it for a few cases for a set time till the end of docket, something like that, to give more opportunity to hear if the agent or applicant is available and is coming.
Thank you. With deference to people that came here to be heard today, I think we ought to hear what they have to say and then defer action, I think, at least until next time.
But then the agent can't hear what they have said and do a fair rebuttal. I think
Well, they can read the minutes. or
Well, let's
read- You know, this is on video, right?
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes.
may. I think Counselor said that we could defer this item a couple of cases while staff attempts to get a hold of the agent. And that way then, if the agent can come here yet this afternoon, then we can hear the case later and not defer any of it until the agent is here.
Sorry, I didn't hear it that way. That's fine. We'll go ahead and listen to testimony. Yes, Scott?
I just wanted to add in that you can also hear comments now. That would give an opportunity for the members of the public who are here to speak on it. You could and then you could defer the item to later in the agenda, which may give time for the agent or applicant to show up. But at that time, then the members of the public will have already provided their comments. But then the response would be the issue. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we defer hearing this case until we find out if the agent can be here. Also, holding off on the testimony until the agent is here.
Second.
I was able to get a hold of his office, not speak to him directly, but they're going to pass the message that he come down here, and it sounded like he will be on his way and be here as soon as he can.
Okay, so that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, well, that if the agent shows up later today, while we're hearing cases, we'll hear him at the end of this. Okay? Does everyone understand what we're doing? We will hear testimony from the public if and when the agent shows up. If he doesn't show up, we will defer the case.
It would be best to make a motion on that matter and have the vote come out.
Okay, yeah. Do I have a motion for that? Mr. Green?
I move that we defer hearing this case until the agent arrives. If at such time the agent is not here and our meeting is over with, then we'll determine what to do with it at that time.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Green, a second by Mr. Nix. All those in favor say aye.
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 Excuse me, go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, Planning Commission. Philip Zievenbergen with planning staff. Conditional use 2023-59 is a request for nightclub in the city as defined by the zoning code. Essentially, it is an event center that may provide entertainment and or alcohol at the same time, which per definition in the zoning code is a nightclub in the city. However, there is a condition of approval, should you approve it today, that the nightclub use would be accessory to an event center to prohibit it from becoming a nightclub in the city in the traditional sense of the word. The property is located at 320 West 21st Street North. This is approximately near 21st and Waco. It is zone limited commercial and is currently developed with a former TV broadcast studio. It was the KPTS station before KPTS moved out east. The property includes two parcels. You have the parcel on the west, which is where the building is. It also has a cell phone tower located on that property. And on the east side of the platted alley is the associated parking lot, if you want to go to the aerial image. The alley is still platted. It is not vacated. It still functions. And this zoning item or the conditional use item does not change any functionality of the alley. It cannot be gated or fenced. It still has to remain as a functioning alley as it has been. There's been no intention to do so, but thought I'd point that out for just the detail's sake, since there is parcels on either side of the alley. As I mentioned before, this is a request to allow the event center on the site. The event center may have alcohol or and/or entertainment at an event if whoever's renting that event out wants to provide it. In order to do that, they need to have the classification of nightclub in the city. An event center is a space that is rented out on an occasional basis. So you don't have daily hours. It's not something where they're just open to the public for anybody to come in. These would be prearranged events for certain durations of time as determined by the owner, as well as the provided occupancy for it as well. The reason they're needing the conditional use is because of residential zoning that is nearby within 300 feet. And the supplementary use regulations in the zoning code require conditional use when within 300 feet of residential zoning, among other things. If you want to go back to the zoning map, please. This is a unique part of town in that the properties to the north are zoned general office and limited commercial, but as we saw in the aerial, they are developed with single family uses. Property to the west is zoned limited commercial and B multifamily. It's a combination of commercial uses along 21st Street and single family uses more north on Waco. Property to the east of the parking lot is zoned limited commercial and it's a single family dwelling. Farther down 21st Street, you have commercial uses fronting 21st Street. Property to the south, as you can see, is zone limited commercial. The larger parcel here is a commercial retail center. Earlier this year in 2023, a conditional use was permitted for an event center that also could provide entertainment and alcohol. So the approval was for nightclub in the city. Of course, that was associated with an event center just like this request. And it was for the southwest corner of the shopping area fronting Waco. Again, that was earlier this year. These properties here that are zone limited commercial are developed with residential uses as well. The subject site does not have an outdoor patio, and it is my understanding that they're not proposing to construct one, so all events would be conducted inside. Because the properties to the north are not residentially zoned, a screening fence is not required per the Unified Zoning Code. I believe that there is a fence already constructed there, but it is not a requirement of the zoning code to maintain it. With the proximity of the residential uses from the building on the larger parcel to the house to the north is approximately 27 feet. Staff is recommending some pretty strict hours of operation for the entertainment. We're not doing these hours of operation to limit events from renting out that space. The entertainment would have to be confined to certain hours of operation. If the event did not require or did not include entertainment, the event would not be subject to the hours of operation. Parking would have to follow the standard for the zoning code, which the site has 39 parking spaces, so occupancy would be limited to 78 unless they furnish parking agreements with other spaces in order to increase their allowable parking. We go to the comprehensive plan slide, please. The comprehensive plan identifies this site as a mixture of commercial on the larger parcel and residential on the parcel with the parking lot. This is generally in partial conformance with the comprehensive plan. Obviously, this is a commercial corridor. When we get to event centers that have more nuisance components to it, like noise and possible traffic, things like that, we look to the locational guidelines. With the locational guidelines, it emphasizes that development should be where the scale is appropriate. An event center may provide entertainment and alcohol, may have detrimental impacts, such as noise to the residential properties to the north. With this not having an outdoor space, that could be mitigated since it'd be inside, not to say that you wouldn't be able to hear music from the outside, but it definitely dampers it a little bit. But the conditions of approval regarding the hours of operation for entertainment are designed to help mitigate these possible negative impacts. We find that it's in partial conformance with the Wichita Places for People plan. When talking about nodal development, there's 2 nodes on either side of this, and higher intensity uses should be developed closer to those nodes with lesser intensity uses developed in between them. And the area is considered a area of opportunity. This is an example of private reinvestment into an area as long as we're not creating nuisances to the neighbors, and we've already discussed how we're mitigating that. It is not in conformance with the 21st Street Corridor Revitalization Plan that identifies this site as appropriate for more neighborhood retail uses, which is kind of going along what we talked about with the nodal development of places for people, where higher intensity uses should be closer to the nodes and less intensive uses like neighborhood serving type of uses being farther away from the nodes. Staff did receive some public comment. We forwarded that to you in an email earlier this week for your consideration. Overall, staff is recommending approval subject to the conditions that are in your staff report. Again, I'll note that nightclub in the city as a use would be accessory to an event center. So it would have to be an event center first before they could have the nightclub in the city, alcohol and entertainment to be allowed. Again, that would not allow it to have daily hours or potentially just be open to the public like a traditional nightclub would be. It has to adhere to all the other supplementary use regulations that are in the zoning code, and those are attached to your staff report. No music or alcohol consumption will be allowed outside the building at any time. The hours of operation, Sunday through Thursday would be 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then on Friday and Saturday would be 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. So a little bit later on the weekends, but pretty strict in terms of the time for entertainment during the weekdays and Sunday. The event center is permitted to operate outside the above hours of operation, provided that they don't have entertainment. You know, the idea is as long as you're not generating the noise that the music could, if somebody wanted a corporate event and it's subtle, then it's really not going to have impacts on the neighboring properties. The others are pretty standard per the zoning code, so for the sake of time, I would answer questions about those if you have any. This went to the District 6 Advisory Board on Monday. They recommended approval 7-1, but they added a condition to require a screening fence along the north property line. They understood that it wasn't required, but given the single-family residential uses on there, they wanted to ensure that a fence, though there's an existing one now, that fence would have to be maintained, and that would put the burden on this property owner, not necessarily on the property owners to the north, to provide a little bit of a barrier between this use and the residential properties to the north. And we can go through the site photos real quick. Next, please. This is looking northeast at the site. Again, this is the main building. Here's your cell tower. This is the residential property to the north and general office zoning. Next picture. This is looking northwest of the site. This is Waco going north. These are the houses that are across the street from the use. These are the commercial uses along 21st Street. Next picture. This is Waco in front of us. I'm in the parking lot of the use on the west side, and these are the houses that are across the street. Here's that fence I was talking about that currently separates the use from the property to the north. It's existing, not required. If you all were to include the condition and it gets approved that way, this would become the responsibility of the current property owner to maintain and replace if it needed. Next picture. This is looking northwest at the site. Here's the parking lot associated. Again, you can see a fence separating the parking lot from the residential property to the north. Next picture. This is in the parking lot looking north at the residential properties abutting it. Next picture. This is looking northeast. Here's the parking lot. This is the residential property that's zoned limited commercial along 21st Street. And farther down 21st, you can see the commercial activity. Next picture. This is looking to the southeast. This is 21st Street. This is Fairview, I believe. And these are zoned commercially, but you can see they're developed with residential uses. Next picture. And this is that retail center across the street. It's the backside of this retail center that the previous case that was heard this year for event center that was nightclub in the city as well. But this is directly across the street to the south. And with that, I can stand for any questions.
Any questions of staff?
There is a church kitty corner.
Mm-hmm.
So is it out of the distance necessary for alcohol to be served?
That just requires the conditional use as well, like for alcohol, like a tavern or drinking establishment or event center / nightclub in the city, all of those, if you're within 2 to 300 feet of residential zoning, a church or place of worship, a school, or a public park. So it's a combination of the residential zoning to the west as well as this distance, which I don't have off the top of my head, but it could have triggered it if there wasn't residential zoning. So it's kind of both and.
Yes, Ms. Foster.
Philip, were you able to tell whether that existing fence was constructed on the subject property, or was it constructed by the neighbors?
I am not aware of it. My guess would be it's pretty close to the property line. Don't know who it was constructed by.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So Philip, I just want to clarify, the houses that are surrounding this property, while they're not zoned residential, are they being used as residential properties? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
Yeah,
Mr. Green.
I guess if we were to require the current property owner to maintain that fence, does it matter whether or not it's on their property or the neighbor's property to the north? Would they, I understand they would have to maintain it, but is there any issue with that?
The understanding could be if the fence were to come into disrepair and say just need to be replaced, where they replace it would have to be on this property owner's property. Just knowing essentially you can't require them to do something on somebody else's property, but wherever that fence landed is probably on the property line or very near there, to where maintaining it essentially means if it's falling into disrepair to the point it needs to be replaced, it is this property owner's requirement to replace it.
Would there need to be some kind of an agreement if it was not on the property owner that's seeking this request?
I would defer to Jeff on that.
No, as stated, all we can require is if the fence, we don't know where it's at this point. If it's on the neighbor's property, then if this fence needs to be repaired, it needs to be replaced on the applicant's property. So there's no reason for an agreement between the two.
Perfect, thanks.
Any other questions? Call on the agent or applicant. Please come forth. You will have 10 minutes. Give us your name and address. Oh, I'm sorry, 3. 3. We're going back to 10. Is the applicant or agent present?
I'll go ahead and give him a call.
Okay. Okay, at this point, we are going to table this case and...
Mr. Chairman, I move that we table this case until the agent or applicant arrives.
Second?
Second.
Have an agent, a motion from Mr. Green and a second from Ms. Foster. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The agent is here now for the case sub 2023-00055, and I would call on Kirk Miller to come forward.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
before we call another case, maybe we ought to ask if the agent or applicant's here.
Well,
Just,
yes, that has
okay.
come to my
Just that, yeah.
attention. We will do that.
So the agent for 2.3, item 2.3 on the agenda is here, and we are now hearing that case.
That's correct.
Right, excellent.
You'll have 10 minutes.
Kirk Miller, K.E. Miller Engineering. I'm the agent. I'm bad agent number 1, apparently. Like to apologize for that. We are fine with staff comments. We would like to request the modifications, the waiver modifications on item C and on item J. We're fine with everything else. We did come up with a new street name. We're in Victor Street, if GIS is okay with that. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Yes, Mr. Green.
Yeah, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you.
The item C, you're requesting that waiver so that you can have either lagoons or lateral field, whichever is appropriate for the soil once it's tested.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of the agent? Yes, Ms. Foster.
Just, was there some reason other than just you wanted more lots, that you didn't make fewer lots that did meet the 5 acre?
It was a matter of getting a better number of lots, yes.
Thank you.
We can go down to 2 lots on rural resident, or 2 acre lots on rural residential, but 3 to have the lagoons.
Any other questions of the agent? Thank you. Is there anyone else present that would like to speak on this case? Please approach the podium, give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm Sarah Burnett, and I'm from the address of 3800 South 127th Street East. I am here to, I guess, mainly protest the waiver for the drainage plan. I would just hope that they have the 29 acres there and they're hoping for the 8 lagoons. And if you can see on the map there, so our residents, are you able to go to the overview map, the aerial map?
Can we go back?
Yes, that'd be great. So this is our residence here, and this is our driveway. So if you could imagine, there was 3 lots here and then 2 additional lots right here. So that would mean that we have 5 lagoons backed up to our property. I would just recommend or like to request the denial for the waiver on the lagoons, just for our visual purposes and obviously smell as well. There was a topical, I'm sorry to keep switching back and forth, but if you can go to the other map, there's a topographical map that kind of shows the drainage. So this lot here in particular is a concern for drainage. Currently, the drainage from this lot would go to the southeast, which goes toward our property and across our driveway. So if they were to put lagoons in and any type of additional drainage would come off of there, it would come across our driveway and into the front yard. And our residence actually does face the west, so we would be looking into I don't assume that they would put lagoons in their front yard, so I assume that we will be looking directly into their backyards where the lagoons would be. So this is a generational home for us, and we intend to be there for a long time. I realize these meetings these days can go quickly, but they have long-term effects, especially for our family and property. I would just ask that you think of this as if it were your own.
Yes, Ms. Foster.
Paul, can you go back to the aerial again? Sorry. There appears to be a platted cul-de-sac street to the east of your house. Is there some reason why that's not your main access point? Why instead you go all the way straight west?
Are you talking about this right here?
Yes.
So that's actually, it was platted that way, but when we purchased it, there's actually no road there. If you're seeing this little road right here, it just goes out to the pond, so that's just a private road right there. It was platted. I believe the previous owners owned this property and that property, and it was platted to be that way. We do own the 42 acres, but we only have the single lagoon right there, and there is no access right there.
Okay, so you purchased it after it was platted.
Correct.
It just never has been built. Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Mr. Johnson.
Your present resident, is it on a lagoon or is it on septic? What it is?
I believe so. I believe the home is on lagoon, and then the barn was built later, and it has both septic and goes to lagoon as well.
So you don't have any smell from it?
I don't believe so. We've only been there since July, so I haven't had much experience with it yet.
Mr. Green?
And it appears as though all of those properties to the south of you, at least from the aerial, that they are all on lagoon systems too?
That's correct.
Okay, is there a hedgerow between, or any kind of screening between your property on the west that abuts the Victor Landing addition?
There is a small tree row. Obviously, you can't plant enough trees to block the view and everything, but yes, there is a small number of trees there, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to comment on this case? If not, the agent will have 2 minutes for rebuttal.
As you can see, there's a lot of lagoons already in the area. We're only talking about 8 more lagoons on 29 acres, so we're not a high-density lagoon area. She also mentioned something about the drainage, and what we've worked out with the County Public Works is we're going to have, down in this area, we'll have some kind of a weir or something along those lines to control the amount of drainage that goes off that corner of the property. What drains down to that corner of the property is an area about like this size. And we'll reduce it as you would normally would on any kind of development where our peak would not exceed the standard peak right now. So we're addressing the drainage. The rest of this drainage up in here goes north, and then this goes out to the street.
Thank you. Any questions of the agent, Mr.
Yep. Mr. Miller, during the subdivision that was brought up, the request to test for the laterals and, in the event of putting a septic in there, is that something that you still plan on doing?
Yes, that's one of the requirements.
Okay. Would that be something that would be, if that test out okay to do that, would you have any issues doing that in lieu of the lagoons, or just?
They're going to sell the lot, so I think it's going to be up to the individual owner of the lot as to what they want to do, unless there's a requirement that says if you can do septic, do septic. But
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your comments. Bring it back to the commission for any other comments or discussion on the case. Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve for staff comments since this was approved by subdivision last week, and we really didn't hear any different information.
Second.
Kirk Sponsel, Deputy County Counselor. For clarification, does that include the 2 waivers previously indicated due to unwarranted
Yes.
hardship? Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
We have a motion from Mr. Johnson, second from Mr. Green. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will come back to the case that we were on. Do we have anybody present yet?
No, Director Weddle indicated that he left a message, so we have not heard from them. I recommend we move on and revisit it at the end of the meeting if we don't hear from them.
So you're saying that we should just defer this to the end, and if they're not, then we'll defer it till the future meeting?
You could consider it today without them, or you could take action to defer it to another meeting. It would be your choice at that time.
We already voted to defer it till the end of the agenda.
Yep, item 4.4. conditional use in the county. And before we get started, is the applicant or agent present? Yeah, I see a hand. We're good.
Good afternoon, everyone. Christina Reith with planning staff. This is case number CON 2023-00060. The applicant is requesting two things. One is a conditional use to permit an event center in the county. And two, a waiver of the supplementary use regulation, section 3-6.n.nn number 7, which requires a 100-foot setback for the building from residential zoning for an existing structure on the property. It is 16 acres in size and located at 3660 North 215th Street West. The subject site is currently developed with an 11,000 square foot building and 4 outbuildings. So, if we take a look at this zoning map here, the event center previously used to encompass a much larger portion, and then it was platted, and part of the property was split off into a residence. So since 21, the subject site has been used as an event center. Since it was split off, it became less than 20 acres, and that's what triggered the event center and the county and the conditional use application. So should the conditional use be approved, the applicant intends to continue to operate the 11,000 square foot facility to host events such as weddings. The supplementary use regulations for event centers require a 100-foot setback for structures and activities. The site plan shows one structure that faces 215th Street here that would violate the required setback. So that is why they're requesting the waiver for this conditional use application. The supplementary use regulations for event centers also require 1 parking stall shall be provided per 4 occupants of the assembly space. Now, I did speak with the applicant this morning, and it doesn't specify it in the report, but there are 187 parking spaces for this facility. However, the maximum capacity for any event, according to their website, is 300 people. A little bit of case history. This property was platted in 2020 as part of the Prairie Hill Vineyard Edition. And then the same year, the applicant requested a conditional use for both an accessory apartment and an event center, but that case was deferred indefinitely. The requested conditional use is in conformance with the Community Investments Plan. When we take a look at the 2035 Wichita Future Growth Concept Map, it identifies the subject site as a rural area. As you can see by the zoning map here, the character of the neighborhood is very rural. The plan's locational guidelines indicate for that areas outside the Wichita established and central area, low-density residential uses should be buffered from commercial and industrial areas by open space, water bodies, changes in topography, or major barriers such as arterial streets or highways. The site features significant open space on the south end and 2 bodies of water on the east end that serve as barriers between the current use and the residentially zoned properties. Additionally, the subject site is located at the intersection of 2 arterial streets. Based upon the information available prior to the public hearings, planning staff recommends that the conditional use request and the waiver be approved, subject to the conditions that are listed in your staff report. This recommendation is based on the golden rules, which are also listed in your staff report. I listed that for opposition or support of neighborhood residents that we did not receive anything. Yesterday morning, I did receive a phone call from a lady who was curious about the application, but was not necessarily in opposition to or in support of the requested conditional use. So let's go through some of the photos, please. So here's an aerial map. As you can see, where my mouse is there's a lot of the parking area here, and then you have this large open space to the south, and then we have 2 bodies of water that serve as a buffer between that and the adjacent agricultural use. Next slide, please. This is the future growth concept map. Next slide, please. This is the site plan. If you can see here, I'm trying to identify I believe, yes, the building is right here where my mouse is, right at the tip of my mouse. That is within the 100-foot setback currently. Next slide, please. This is looking east towards the site. This is the main event center structure. Next slide, please. This is looking north towards the site, and we can see some of the parking area here as well. Next slide, please. This is looking south towards the site. Next slide, please. This is looking south towards the site again. It's so large that I had to move and take pictures a couple times. Next slide, please. This is looking west towards the back of the building. Next slide, please. This is looking east towards the site with the aforementioned body of water. Next slide, please. This is looking east towards an outbuilding. Now this is the restroom facilities, and according to the applicant, they use septic for their site. Next slide, please. This is looking north towards the outbuilding that's within the setback. Behind that is the residence of the applicant, so that is not a part of this application. Next slide, please. This is looking north towards an outbuilding. Next slide, please. This is looking south away from the site. As you can see, there is an adjacent residential structure and some barn structures as well. Next slide, please. This is looking west away from the site. This is looking at 215th Street. Next slide, please. And that concludes my site photos. And with that, I will stand for any questions that you may have.
Mr. Aldridge.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. One in the staff report, it says that 2023, earlier this year, I guess, staff received a complaint about the property and the operations. Did that complaint come from an employee from staff, or was that from outside, or?
My recollection is that complaint actually came for the short-term rental that is on the adjacent property. So if you see my mouse here, it is actually in regards to this short-term rental. So at the time, back in 2020, this was all one property. And so this was considered part of the event center. So the event center was permitted by right. Once it was split off and they received a complaint about the short-term rental, that actually triggered the complaint for the conditional use for the event center in the county.
Also, on staff recommendations, if approved, on page our report on item number 7, says guests shall not be permitted to loiter in the property following the event. All guests must be vacated within 30 minutes, and the host must vacate the property within an hour. My question is, what happens if the owner happens to be the host? Are you trying to say that the owner's gonna have to get off his own property?
I don't think so, but he also does live right, adjacent to the property. So I would assume it'd be easy for him to get to his property within an hour.
I understand that, but it's his property. I think he ought to be able to stay on as long as he wants. And also, got a question regarding the lighting on item number 9, where it states, I guess all the lights got to be shut off and stuff are not visible for the neighbor's lot. Does that include security lights?
I believe so, yes.
So much for security. Okay, thank you.
So the reason for this application is it was already approved as an event center, but they sold off some of the acreage, and right now it's at 16.4 acres.
Correct.
What was the minimum requirement for what they were originally approved?
20 acres.
20 acres, so it's just slightly under that.
Yes.
Is there any other questions of the staff on this? If not, we'll call on the agent or applicant to speak. Please give us your name and address, and you'll have 10 minutes.
Thank you to the commission for allowing us the opportunity to speak today. My name is Dan Stockamer. I'm the owner of Prairie Hill Vineyard and the applicant here. to give you a little background, I've got 10 minutes, so I'll use it. I grew up on this farm right here is the farm I grew up on. And when I was a kid, this was all one big cow pasture. So every day for the first, once I was 5 years old, you go get the cows every day. So I've been up and down this pasture thousands of times. And so back when I moved back from 1998 from Sonoma County, my wife was upset because she didn't want to move to Kansas. And I told her, honey, I'll promise I'll plant a vineyard if it makes it look like Sonoma County. And that's how we got started. One thing led to another. Every year I had a new project to do. And basically I love working outside. So we kept going. 2015, my daughter wanted to get married, and rather than do a destination wedding in Sonoma County, I put all that money into this property, and we started doing weddings there. And then everybody started asking us if we could do more weddings, so we started doing that. We had 20 acres, and I made sure I could be I was the number one, or the first agritourism district approved here in Sedgwick County, and we are a registered agritourism designation with the state of Kansas, which I think is a big deal. It's the whole idea is to get people out in the country and enjoy the country. So we started doing weddings, and my daughter said to me in 2017, Dad, 18, if we're going to really do this, we got to get a building. So we started putting the building, which is right here. Actually, it's right here. This used to be a horse arena. So we put the building right here, and now we have all of our parking here. We've got a new entry here. This doesn't do justice to the property right now. And we've been rated the #1 wedding venue in Sedgwick County, or at least Wichita area, by the voters at Wichita Best. We're really proud of that. My general manager, Brock White, and his dad, John White, do such a bang-up job keeping the place looking great. It really is an amazing property, and one which we're really proud to represent. So I sold Brock, who's going to take this whole thing over. My daughter moved away, and so I'm left having to deal with not having my daughter run this. And so Brock White is going to run it, and he currently is there all of the time. And I sold this 2 acres to him. And because of the rezoning and the platting and everything, it brought our acreage down. And so this is why now we have to come in. Before that, I was able to do it by right. I'm glad that we get it out in front. We want to do this. We want to be the very best wedding venue in the Sedgwick County. That's our goal. And to treat our brides in the most amazing way. And we get great reviews. We've gotten so many great reviews. Whenever I get discouraged, wondering why I keep this place having to do all this work, I go read the reviews. And they're absolutely great. So my thought was, everything in there is fine with us, although, Bob, you hit a good point. We're up there till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning sweeping the place out. I don't think it's realistic that you say you got to get out of here by 12 and then come back in the middle of the day the next day to do cleanup. Everybody's there working. We get it cleaned up. We get our guests out. I might add that the only real, when I started doing this, I went up to this road here, which was on my farm. I sold this land in order to finish this project. So I ran short on money, so I had to sell the farm. I got it in the people that bought this land. I got them to sign a noise waiver. So when they buy that, know that can have a little bit of noise. The only other people live out here, up here, and down here. And we only had one real complaint, and that's when we had a quinceanera and we had a Mexican band with a big tuba, and I could hear that a mile away. And so I understood, and everybody has our number. They can call us if we need to turn the volume down. We turn it down. We try to be the best neighbors. We've got good relationships with all of our neighbors. It's rather unique because the sound, when we have a building right here, number 6 is what I'm making a request for. So if you take a look at number 6, there's a building right here, and we have a dance floor right here. And in the middle of the summer, it's really nice to have your DJ or a small band playing, and people can dance outside. The sound goes here. There's a line of trees right here that mitigates the sound. Also, then it has to go up a hill because this is a bit of a rise to this. I've gone up here and sat here and then down another road and listened, and the noise is so minimal. Our neighbors, if there's anybody that's going to complain, this is the home place I grew up on. My cousin Paul Stivert lives there, and his wife Rhonda will definitely call me if the noise gets too loud. And so my request is that somebody be kind enough on the commission here and I'll answer any questions, of course, that I'd like to have a motion made that we be allowed to have outdoor music and that it be done respectfully. If we need to turn the noise down, we do that. But we have had youth music partnership has brought high school bands to play there. And we do a fall festival and a spring festival, and we like to have music. And people come out, and we do all kinds of wonderful things out there. We have hayrack rides and all kinds of clown blowing up balloons. And we like to have music because it adds a lot to the whole ambiance of the property. So with that said, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Back to the commission. Do we have any questions of the applicant? Yes, Ms. Foster.
Amplified music is what it refers to. Is the music you're talking about with the bands and so forth, is it amplified or is it sometimes amplified from inside?
Well, the inside, once it's inside of the building, the walls of the building mitigate the sound, so it's when you get outside, almost it's really not even bands so much, although if you have a band in the middle of the afternoon, most of everything we've done in our fall festivals, we're done by 7 or 8 o'clock.
But is it acoustic music or is
it can be amplified.
Yeah,
but that gives us the option then, if we know it's too loud, we go up to them and say, turn it down. Because we don't want to upset our neighbors. But what we do want to do, and a lot of our neighbors have told me, I sort of like hearing the music, put your right foot in, your right foot out. After so many times, they get to know the song. But the point being, they don't mind the music. If it's too loud, they know they can call us. And we do not want to have our neighbors upset with us. We want to get along right with them. And so we've been doing this now. My daughter's wedding was 15. We really kicked in 17 and 18, 19, and we've not had any problems other than the Oompa band that did the quinceanera. And so I really think it's reasonable, given the background, the nature of my relationship with the neighbors, mitigation of these trees actually break a lot of that sound. And so, and it's pointed in such a way that it has to go up a hill, you just don't hear it that much, so.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Fox.
I'm curious, Dan, can you hear Andell football games at your location?
No, I can't.
Oh, I'm surprised. Okay.
Yeah, I do hear the church bells in St. Mark's, which I love to listen to. There, I remember hearing them when I was a kid. So I'm going to make a request. If somebody I don't know how to do this, if somebody on the board could motion that we would be allowed to have outdoor music as long as, we were sensitive to the neighbors' requests.
We'll get to that point when we discuss it. Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
So, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this case? Anyone from the public? Well, there's no rebuttal. I'll bring it back to the commission to discuss and make a motion.
I would like to ask a quick question of staff. On item 7 about the hosts must vacate the property within an hour, do we have a definition of hosts? Is that like who rented it to have the party, or is that the owner of the property?
It would be my opinion, it'd be the person or persons who rented it to have the event. They would be the host. One could argue that the property owner's the host because they have the facility, but the property owner lives there.
That makes
it's not
far
even-
more
it's-
sense to
it's-
me than the alternative.
It's
Okay.
beyond reason to think the property owner has to vacate their own property.
Okay, Mr. Green, are you about to go?
Nix.
I should ask Dan this, but other than your relatives, I'm asking Dan, other than your relatives, how close is when you walk up that hill, is that what you're talking about?
Over a half mile away.
I'd like to make a motion, if I may, that we.
Just a minute.
Just a second. I wanted to.
Go ahead, Mr. Green.
I wanted to pursue your question just a little bit further about the lighting, because when you were questioning that, I was looking down and I saw JR, and it looked like he was thinking about saying something and he didn't. I was concerned about the lighting for security purposes. Is that going to be, is that something that falls under these regulations and requirements?
Well, first of all, I wasn't thinking about the lighting. I was still thinking about Mr. Commissioner Aldridge's contention that possibly the property owner had to vacate their own property.
Okay. All right. Well, so if you wouldn't mind addressing the security light
Yeah.
issue, because that seems like it would be
Give me a sec.
1001.
I have a staff question too.
I would like to clarify where that thing, I actually just noticed a typo. It says lighting sources shall be 30 feet. I think that shall not exceed 30 feet. Because then if, the way it's currently written now, if they had lighting that was more than 200 feet away from a residential property line, they would have to put a 30-foot light in, and that's not our intention. So I think it needs to read shall not exceed 30 feet in height, and if it's within 200 feet of residential zoning, it's 15 feet in height is the maximum.
And in reading this, Commissioner Green, it requires that the light source is not visible from the neighboring lot. So security lighting can still occur. They can be shielded in such a way that they're providing illumination for security purposes, but not simply lighting up everything surrounding it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm good with that explanation.
Ms. Fox?
If,
My experience has been of Mr. Stockmer as a very, very conscientious neighbor. My only concern would be if we approve the outdoor amplification without the cousins knowing, family feuds can be as good as any. I don't know. And that would not have been in the publication then. Does that make sense? If we change that permission, but it wasn't published with that permission being requested, is that a problem? Am I explaining myself poorly?
I would say the detail about whether or not there's amplified music outdoor is not part of the publication. The publication simply publicizes the event center in the county. It doesn't get into that level of detail.
Gotcha. Thank you. I just want to make sure that if we changed that, we weren't causing people not to know what was being asked for.
Or essentially, when it was allowed by right, there wasn't that condition to prohibit outdoor. So it sounds like they've had outdoor stuff in the past. This technically would have been a new condition that would be different now that it's coming through a conditional use.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
I just want to state that I've been with it to a number of functions in that. Some outside, some inside. Very, very, very neat place, taking very good care of it. And apparently he's not going to change his operation. We're just taking a piece of the corner off. So I don't want to add much more requirements just because he's trying to do what he needs to do.
I would make a motion to,
Go ahead. I would, at this point, entertain a motion on this case.
yeah, I'm gonna make a motion that we approve, per staff recommendations and comments with the exception of item, number 6 on staff recommendations, that we eliminate that requirement. And I believe, there was a,
Correction to number 9 for the light pole pipe.
right, and, thank you. And the correction, on item number 9 to make sure that we don't interfere with the, security lights. And wasn't there a waiver that?
Kirk Sponsor, Deputy County Counselor. Would also be include waiver of supplementary use regulation 3D6 NN number 7 for the existing structures.
Yeah, there you go.
What
He said.
Anyway, all that's my motion.
And second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Fox? Aldrich. Mr. Aldrich, and second by Mr. Green. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
So now we are on 4.6, I believe.
Good afternoon, Planning Commission. Philip Zevenbergen for the record. The requested community unit plan amendment is to permit a car wash on parcel 10. This property is zoned limited commercial. It's located on the west side of North Rock Road, just about a quarter mile north of K96. The subject site, if you want to go to the aerial, is currently developed with a former restaurant building that's been vacant for some time. If this is approved, that building would be demolished and a car wash would be constructed in its place. Specifically, this is the Comaterra Power Center Community Unit Plan DP 195. The only reason this is coming as a community unit plan amendment is the uses permitted in the community unit plan specifically restrict car washes except for those that would, when this was established, it would have been by BZA approval based on use exceptions, but essentially they were not permitted by right. It actually had provisions that essentially restrict them. And so we have to do an amendment in order to allow the use. If we were to look at this property, if it was just limited commercial, was not in a community unit plan, the supplementary use regulations in the Unified Zoning Code 3D6F restrict car washes within 200 feet of residential zoning. If we were to look at it that way, this would have been permitted by right. Your nearest residential zoning is to the west. You have MF 29 and MF 18, and they're approximately 860 feet away behind Sam's Club and a whole lot of their buffering things. And so essentially would have been permitted by right. Across the street is limited industrial zoning, and it's developed with an office park. The community unit plan is developed with retails and restaurants, big box retail, your typical commercial center. So this amendment is to essentially just change the uses in order to allow the car wash because of how the community plan was written. If you want to go to the site plan, please. The site plan shows us community unit plan. Keep going. There you go. Thank you. This is parcel 10. To the north, you have a McDonald's. To the south, you have a small retail center. This is how it would be redeveloped. You would have cross-lot access via a shared driveway to the south, come into the queuing lines. The Unified Zoning Code requires at least, I apologize here, I just lost it, 6 queuing spaces, and based on the dual line that they have, that would accommodate 21. So there should be sufficient queuing spaces for the drive up to the menu board in order to purchase the car wash, come through the car washes, which is oriented east-west with the blowers on the end facing Rock Road. So in terms of the generation of the most noise and things like that, it's pointed towards the busy arterial street. And then they could exit the wash or go into the vacuum bays. You can see there's a ditch lane here. If they purchase their wash and then realize they don't want it, they could leave. But either way, this is the general function of the site. The screening standards for the community unit plan are already met. This is an internal parcel, so they don't have any internal screening requirements. They would have to screen, the community unit plan has to screen along the west property line. This does have landscaping requirements for landscape street yard, as well as parking lot screening, which includes drive aisles and things like that, since Rock Road is an arterial street. The subject site was zoned to commercial in 1982, and it was in the early 90s that the community unit plan was established. The comprehensive plan identifies this area as appropriate for new residential. This category allows for commercial development based on market-driven factors. Given the fact that this is North Rock Road, which is a very large commercial strip area with office parks and commercial next to a highway, we feel this is very appropriate for the area. Staff is recommending approval subject to the conditions in your staff report. This went to District 1 Advisory Board about a week and a half ago. They came out with no recommendations. They were essentially a hung jury. They wouldn't get a majority on approval or denial. So it comes out as no recommendation. My understanding of the conversation was there was concern that it would be generating more traffic in an already very busy area. My understanding of the discussion, and I believe the applicant can elaborate a little bit more, is that this isn't necessarily a trip generating type of use. It's a use that takes advantage of traffic that's already there. Somebody going to Sam's Club and they decide to get their car washed along the way. That type of thing. So they don't really feel like it's going to induce additional traffic, but really take advantage of traffic that's already in the area. Other than that, we have not heard any public comment regarding this. And I can take you through the site photos real quick. This is the landscape plan. This is looking southwest of the property. This is the current structure, which was a former IHOP. Next picture. This is looking across Rock Road at the office park development across the street. Next picture. This is looking across Rock Road to the northeast at the office park. Next picture. This is looking north at McDonald's in the community unit plan. Next picture. This is looking west at Sam's Club, which is behind it, and the residential zone. You can see the apartments behind Sam's Club. Those are the nearest residences nearby. Next picture. This is looking to the northeast at the larger retail area of the community unit plan. Next picture. And I can stand for questions.
Any questions of staff from the commission? Yes, Mr. Williams Bay.
Philip, is the entrance to this car wash going to remain where it is now for the restaurant that's no longer operating?
According to the site plan, the entrance to the car wash would be with this shared use drive on the south. And you can see the aerial show that there's currently cross-lot access on the north. It shows that that access is going to be routed to behind, and that's fine. They're still providing cross-lot access into the community unit plan, so they meet that requirement. But the entrance to the car wash is on the south of the building using the shared driveway off Rock Road.
Thank you.
Mr. Green.
If I'm looking at the site map correctly, it looks like you can access the car wash from the south, and you can also access the car wash from the west, if you look at the arrows on the drawing.
Yes.
So it's not just Rock
No,
Road.
not just from Rock Road. You could access the car wash from within the community unit plan parking lot.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll go back to the question I should have asked first, and that is the agent or applicant present. All right. We'll call on the agent or applicant. Please state your name and address. You'll have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. John LaPointe, Brightwork Real Estate, 3708 West Swan Boulevard, Tampa, Florida. Appreciate staff. We've been working with them for a while. Everybody, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Yeah, we're here today just to really try to amend the PUD to allow a standalone car wash the way it was, staff said, the way it's currently written. It is kind of either adjoined with a a gas station. This is a very complicated site, to be honest. There's a lot of constraints. This access is joint and has to be remained. This has to be remained, which we like all of them, same thing across the north. So it's been a fun site plan challenge to be able to provide and maintain the cross access, which we like. As staff had mentioned, we believe ourselves to be a less intense use than what currently is there. A 5,100 square foot sit-down restaurant typically would generate more PM peak hour trips than a car wash. A fast food restaurant, anything to that effect that would be allowed by right. We typically will do a PM peak hour trip, about 47 PM cars. Our real peak is more like the Sunday, Saturday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, sunny day, where we'll get to maybe 100 cars an hour on our peak. So compare that to a Chick-fil-A or a sit-down restaurant at 6 o'clock at night. We think we're going to be actually reducing the demand on the infrastructure, and we do like the synergy of the commercial development. We like the Sam's, the McDonald's. We do believe ourselves to be a destination spot where we're trying to pull traffic from where the families are and other people are already there. Since they're getting a McDonald's, they'll just go through a car wash. And we are a monthly membership-based car wash, so you pay once a month and you can go as many times as you want. So I think that was one thing. If I was to sit here and saw 22, or anybody sees 22 cars, 21 cars, and you're driving by. So with that, we're looking forward to hopefully coming to the community, and I'll answer any questions anybody has.
Questions of the applicant?
Sir, presently, there's a connection between the McDonald's and this location. And the way I read your plat here is that it's going to be closed, correct?
Well, this connection must be maintained back through the center, and that's what we're doing. We are terminating a connection right across the frontage just due to the nature of our business being a membership that we control access through here for members. So it's not like a fast food, you can just bypass around. So in order to get to the car wash, you have to be a member. So that's why there's controlled access here to keep people from just coming in and using a vacuum stall. So
No, but presently, there's a
presently there
driveway between the
right here,
McDonald's and
yes.
this, and that's going to be closed.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Aldridge?
Sir, do you agree with staff recommendations and comments as given?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Zimmelman.
So this looks very similar to a couple other car washes around town, and there will be days where that double line of cars coming in could possibly block the exit from the drying area and probably the entrance from Rock Road. Do you see that as a possibility or not?
Personally, don't. Honestly, I've done 50 across the country in the last 3 years, and operationally, Tidal Wave Auto Spa is top of the line. Not to speak ill of anybody else, but the operational side and how they do their, they have somebody who's manned sitting right here at all times, controlling the speed of this. If there's a backup, it's usually here, actually, not here. Because like I said, there's usually membership based, it's RFID, or it's license plate readers. So you just come in, boop, opens, and you come right in. So.
Any
And
other
plus,
questions?
this right here, like I used it at the local area. One thing we have is a big gorilla sitting to the west of us. So that'll happen maybe one time before Walmart or Sam's comes back and puts a hurting on us.
Yes, Mr. Nix.
Are you already operating in the Wichita area?
We are in the Salina, Kansas. This is the first in Kansas. This would be the second. We've done a bunch in Missouri, so we're trying to get into this market right now.
Can we ask the name of it?
So, Tidal Wave Auto Spa, Salina, Kansas is the closest. We've done in Missouri, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I've done 50 of them. I think I know the ones in Missouri. Jefferson City, Missouri, we've done 4 others. I could get them to you here in a second, give them to staff. But this is a big push for us and for Tidal Wave into the center of the country, so.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Mr. Williams.
So is this self-serve? I mean, do you have to pay to get in? You have a
It's membership based, so you can, if you were to come up as the first time and say you want to try it, you can pay at this kiosk for one time to try it, and then you'd run through and you could use the vacuums. But the membership is really what, you could also sign up for membership here. So once you sign up, all you do is you come through the queue, it reads you, you go through, it knows what wash that you selected from basic to deluxe, and you go through and you use the vacuums if you would like to do the inside of your car, or you just proceed to leave.
So it's actually 2 lanes?
Yes, 2 lanes, yep. Mm-hmm. A membership lane is on the outside, and then if you're not a member, which both lanes service members, but if you're not a member, you go to the inside lane.
Thank you for your comments.
Oh, no problem.
I personally meet all the criteria of the crazy old lady driver. So I just want to understand if I'm driving north on Rock Road and make a right-hand turn right there, and I'm really going to Sam's Club.
Mm-hmm. You go this way. Yep.
What kind of striping is going to be there to keep me in my lane, especially when people are trying to turn left to go, the members of your place are trying to go from Sam's toward your entry and back in? I feel like that's going to be where I'm going to have my major accidents.
Yeah, well, again, this is our preliminary site plan for zoning purposes, there could be additional striping through this intersection that we could reform and refine to alleviate some of that.
City, what happens when that internal traffic control, it doesn't have to meet the same signage requirements as the streets do, obviously. Is there any guidelines for making that a safe little place with all the ins and turns? And it's just like, it seems a short distance from off Rock Road into that area.
We could add goring striping all the way back to here and then work on some striping through here. This is a stop condition. This will be a stop condition, so obviously free flow to the east-west movement.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this case? Please approach the podium, give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
David Mulhagen. I live at 4341 North Cypress Drive, Wichita, Kansas. My wife works at 3500 North Rock Road, Building 300, just sort of adjacent to this area. And I am concerned about the traffic coming up. Now, he says that there's not backups. Well, I'm one of the ones that does have a membership to wash my four-wheel drive pickup down the street at another competitor's. And there are times when it is backed up on that street, as that's in between the car wash and your Subway and Phillips 66, because there are so many people there. My concern is because of the Sam's Club and all the traffic that does go through there, because we shop that area as well, that there is going to be at some point or time a lot of backup going into there. And I am very concerned about that. And there are a lot of wrecks out there, inconsiderate drivers. So I don't know what can be done about that, but I am here to state my concern for that, because we are in that area all the time. My wife works within 1 block of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this case? If not, we'll bring the applicant back up and you have 2 minutes rebuttal.
Thank you, and I appreciate your comments. And safety is a big concern for everybody. It's a big concern for Tidal Wave. We look at this at length, on every site and every site that we go through. And to your point, I can't promise you that it's not going to at some point get delayed, or I can't help you with inconsiderate drivers. They're everywhere. But what I can tell you is that we do have staff that do flow. And if we see a condition, we will stop and continue and try to help that condition by bypassing people. We will not let it get out into this intersection. We will put up cones, stop it, or mitigate it immediately. That's the only good part about it, is there's staff waiting to do it. I don't know about the other ones because, again, I'm not here locally about the other two. But I know that we take very seriously the safety on our sites. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, back to the commission. Any discussion? What's your pleasure on this?
I move to approve per staff comments.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Foster, second from Ms. Miles. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, the next case is
Mr. Dool, if I could, I believe we have the applicant here for the event center. I believe we have the applicant here for the event center case.
yes. Are we going to hold that till the end, or we want to let that on the agenda at this point? Let's wait till we've heard all of our cases and then we can hear this, okay? So we are on item 4.8. Zoning case 00065.
Good afternoon, Commission. Brad Etherly, Senior Planner. Today we are discussing zoning case 2023-00065. The applicant for this case is requesting a zone change from SF5 to Single Family District to GO, General Office District. The site that we're looking at is 9.54 acres in size and is located at 3224 North Tyler Road. If you can go to the aerial, please. You can see it there. The site has been used as a church but has been vacant for several months, and the applicants would like to use the site as a funeral home, which is permitted by right in the general office district. The zone change, if approved, would have a reduction in setbacks as seen in the staff report, but is also subject to compatibility standards. The Unified Zoning Code requires screening of commercial properties when abutting or across the street from residential zoning districts. Because this property abuts residential zoning on all sides, the applicant would be required to provide a solid screening fence of at least 6 feet in height along those property lines. The property will also need to adhere to the Wichita Sign Code, which prohibits building signs from facing residential zoning district if the building is within 150 feet of the residential lot line. The applicant will also need to adhere to the requirements of the Wichita Landscape Ordinance. In general, the ordinance requires 1 shade tree or 2 ornamental trees per 40 linear feet along the abutting residential property lines, and a landscape street yard with parking lot screening will be required along North Tyler Road for any substantial changes to the existing building or additions to the existing parking lot. However, the property is heavily landscaped on the rear, on the street side, and on the south side of the property, which may be sufficient to meet the landscape requirements. If you can go to the zoning map. Do want to point out that the property is surrounded by the SF5 single-family residential district and is developed with single-family residences on all sides. The site was platted as part of the Northwest Methodist Edition in 2007, and in 2006, the BZA approved a request to permit parking within the front setback, but no closer than 8 feet from the property line. The subject site has access to North Tyler Road. It has access to city services such as sewer and water, and Wichita Transit does not serve the site. The requested zone change is in partial conformance with the Community Investments Plan. The map shows the area as new residential, as areas of land that will likely be developed or redeveloped by 2035 with uses predominantly found in the residential category. Pockets of major institutional and commercial uses likely will be developed within this area as well, based upon market-driven location factors. Staff does believe that based on the former use of church or place of worship, the proposed use of funeral home or other office uses would be appropriate for the property. The locational guidelines state that that it's outside the established central area where the subject site is located. And residential and non-residential development areas generally should be separate and distinct with appropriate screening and buffering to ensure compatibility among land uses while maintaining connectivity among uses. And the proposed development, again, will be required for the screening and the buffering in accordance with the UZC and the Wichita Landscape Ordinance. If you can go to the photos, please. So this is on the property, kind of looking east to the rear of the property. You can see that it's heavily landscaped with cedar trees almost in the whole back half of the property. Next picture. This is across Tyler Road that is looking at the property, looking east. Next picture. This is looking north away from the site. Next picture. This is looking west across Tyler Road into a subdivision on the other side. Next picture. And I can stand for any questions. Oh, I will say that based upon the information available, it is requested that the request be approved. Staff has received 3 emails and 1 phone call with concerns about traffic and allowing possible other uses allowed in the general office district in the future. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Questions of staff?
Yeah.
Mr. Green?
Yeah, I noticed the comments and the concerns about traffic, which we really don't have much control over that. I think that would be a Public Works engineering determination if the traffic got bad enough. But the one concern that I do have is, and we have control over that, and that would be the zoning of this property to general office. I typically don't think that, at least from experience, that the churches would go out of business, but I guess they do. And I would have not have thought that this property would sell, but it is being sold. With this being a funeral home, how can we protect the integrity of the neighborhood if we were to approve this general office but then they decided to sell, then all of the other general office opportunities could move into that area. Can we restrict the property for funeral home purposes? Could we put a protective overlay on this, keep the zoning the same, but have a protective overlay where we could have this be approved for a funeral home? What would be the best way to ensure the security of that the neighbors probably have a concern with?
Yeah, that's a great question. Staff did not see that a protective overlay was necessary, but if the planning commission feels that is something that is necessary, it's certainly something that you can add as a provision to the motion that is made.
I mean, an example of that would be, use are restricted to those allowed in SF5 in addition to funeral home, which is permitted in GO. If you just wanted to restrict it to funeral home, that's how that could be done.
Okay, because I could see where if it's zoned GO, there's a multitude of things that the neighborhood might not really appreciate having. Whereas a funeral home isn't that intrusive, I wouldn't think.
It's my understanding that this is a mortuary that does embalming as well as cremation. Is that correct? And that's allowed under right?
I would defer to the applicant for it, but I will say that, yes, you're correct. The crematorium is allowed by right as a funeral home, but as far as what operations will be taking place, I'll defer to the applicant for that.
We had another question from Commission. Yes, Mr. Nix.
I'm just curious, it says that the church has been vacant for some time. I don't know what some time means. I drive by there often, and when did they go out of business?
I did a little bit of research. It looked like they left the premises in October of this year and moved to a different location. But I couldn't confirm that. But it looked like
the
that
other
was the
thing
case.
I'm curious about is it calls for a 6-foot fence around the entire perimeter of this thing. I mean, given all the trees that are there, is that right?
Well, it does require the screening aspect of the UZC, and so technically that would be correct. If they wanted to ask for a waiver for that, then that's a possibility.
And we've had in some cases where they demonstrate that with the landscaping in the back being sufficient to act as the zoning code allows for landscaping to act as solid screening. So in this case, having evergreen trees to where it's completely obstructing the view, at least on the eastern portion of the property, or where there's sufficient landscaping to effectively screen it like a 6-foot screening fence, that suffices, and a fence is not necessarily required on top of
It
that.
just seems like an extra expense to me to the applicant, given how dense those trees are along there.
No, I think that is one of the purposes of that part of the zoning code, is that when landscaping is sufficient to provide the solid screening acting as 100% like a screening fence, then the fence would not have to be required.
And I did make mention of that in the staff report. If you can see, the south property line is pretty heavily landscaped, as well as the back half of the property Where it might come into play is maybe on the north side a little bit.
So on this 9.5 acres, it's possible to develop something back on the east side, is it not? I mean, they have plenty of room for access.
That could be possible.
So the restriction, as I read it now, the maximum height's 35 feet, it could be 60. In a future development, if it's a general office, could it be 60 feet?
Depends on how far setback the building is. It would have to comply with the compatibility height standards. So within 50 feet of the property line, it's restricted to 35 feet. And then you get to scale up from that. For every 3 feet additional setback, you get 1 foot in height. So depending on the width of it, knowing you have residential zoning to the north and the south and the east, depending on where the building is put, it may be restricted to 35 feet, but probably unlikely that it would get all the way to 60, just given the width of it and that graduated setback per the compatibility standards.
Any other questions of staff? Thank you. Is the agent or applicant present? Please state your name and address, and you will have 10 minutes.
This is Cheryl Baker. I live at 11611 Ponderosa, Wichita, Kansas. My husband and I, this is our realtor. My husband and I own mortuary or funeral home on East Central, which we plan to keep. We have small services there, and often we go to other people's churches for services. Plus, we do many graveside services out of town. Our reasonable prices draw many, even though our establishment on East Central is small. It's just that it draws people from everywhere. And we do have a funeral home in Valley Center. The parking is very scant. We can't buy any property around it. Nobody wants to part with their property, and people often have to walk along a gravel walkway and a railroad track to get to the funeral home there. So we need a larger establishment in which to have services. We would have probably more services yet at East Central. But in the case, say, of something very tragic, for instance, the death of a youth, it gets so much publicity, and therefore maybe we would opt to use the church for that particular service. And I might note, even on the west side of the street, the earth is so burned highly up with vegetation on it that we can only see the rooftops of the homes across the street. And their windows would not view our funeral home hardly at all. I never see people along that particular side of the street out in the yards. You cannot see their yards. But the place is beautiful. And the area on the east side of the church is like a green meadow. When people show up there, they're very, very reverent. It's a sad situation for them. They're not boisterous. There would be no wild driving. And whenever there would be a large service, an escort service is provided by us. So there would be order along that street. And in the case that we would want to sell, I think the ease of getting it sold would be very, very possible, because the growth on the northwest corner of Wichita is rampant. I'm just astonished at how quickly homes are being built. There are some that are all alike, and they'll take up an acre or 2 acres. but they're putting up homes on, say, 53rd Street, and look at the people that are filling up Maze. So I feel that people who need the money or would have the money to buy a church, there would be plenty of population to fill that church. I don't feel there would be a problem of selling it back, but we really do need a larger facility to help the Valley Center people have a larger space to use. And also, if, say, there's a more tragic and noted service for somebody that's, say, in the well-known in Wichita, we would opt to use that bigger church for a bigger crowd. And as I say, it would be calm, reverent people showing up there. There would be no problem of loudness, I'm sure. And as I say, there are escort services that keep people on the street safe. Thank you.
Questions from the commission, Mr. Aldridge?
Yes, ma'am, I'm just curious, have you already purchased the property?
Yes.
Or is it contingent upon the
No, we did purchase it. It went on, what do you call it?
It was auctioned.
Auction.
McCurdy. So
Okay.
there's no contingency, so we had to really weigh out the.
Well, it's strange, probably a year and a half ago, we sold a property. It ended up being bought by Amazon, but I had put a note on the back door of their church if they decided to move. Because I know so many churches have had to move, and they've built along 96 Expressway. And anyway, I had put a note on that door to notify us if they are interested in selling, and they lost membership and they couldn't afford to pay the bills. Basically, that's why they moved, and now the members there are having services at Reflection Ridge.
Ms. Fox?
Thank you.
My question is related to the escort services. So what I'm understanding, cremation and embalming won't happen at this location. It will really just be for funeral services.
Well,
Is that accurate?
There would be a large area that would be all right for a prep room, which is embalming.
Okay. So when you have a funeral service and you're proceeding to the cemetery, the escort service helps the relatives, et cetera, orderly leave and go. But
they follow all the way to the cemetery.
So my question is, the traffic that's on the road at the time that the escort service begins, we have a very respectful population in terms of them pulling to the side of the road. But I don't think there are shoulders on Tyler. So how do you maneuver around the existing traffic on a road like that?
Well,
can you explain that to me?
Well, it's just like an ambulance or a fire engine going down the street. People would, they'd be given room to, well, first of all, there is a warning car with flashing lights. So they are given time to get to the curb.
Other questions?
You know, I'm very, very, I get pretty emotional whenever I see members following the escort service. And I'm so proud of the people that are willing to pull over and be calm and wait.
Yeah.
Because I watched ambulance have to wait on intersections for people to get out of their way. Even though they hear sirens, they still try to beat the ambulance or fire wagons across intersections. But whenever an escort service is escorting...
You answered my question.
Okay.
I think the only other thing is with the school system there, when school discharges, there's a lot of school traffic, buses, et cetera, leaving that area. Would you give consideration to the timing of your services related to school beginnings and really endings was probably the bigger one?
Absolutely, absolutely, because those
Okay, thank you.
yellow buses, yes.
Any other questions from the commission? If not, is there anyone else present from the public who'd like to speak on this case?
Okay.
Please give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Karen Monteith, 3145 North Pepperidge. We have property abutting this property in consideration for rezoning. Couple questions or clarifications, perhaps more than a pro or con comment. Actually, it's kind of a relief in some aspect to understand that the property, when we saw it being sold, has been sold as a funeral parlor. I think that actually is a good use of the property. It does have an interesting reverence to it. As a property owner and neighbor, we walk around that area, and it's very true. Just as she said, this berm on the west side of Tyler is tall. You don't see these houses virtually at all. And there's also a slope all the way down this hill. Once you get past that parking lot, it slopes down pretty significantly. My questions or concerns stem around the screening concepts and the landscape concepts. How is that going to impact the properties that have already been developed to the east? Actually, we got some landscape things going on right now that we're thinking about. So just trying to understand what's going to happen in the near and far future, so we stay good neighbors. And the other, I think the other, and it is very dense. In fact, honestly, we've been on your property because these cedar trees have overgrown so much that they're dying and growing over on one side out into the sun and dying on the backside. So my husband helped me clean up some of that so that we have actually a little edging on the back of our property and got rid of some of the dead stuff, so it is starting to grow and look nice again. But that's a sidebar, I guess. But just how we're all going to be impacted as the new neighbors. And the other part was just mentioned with the school. It doesn't really show up in this picture, but there's a huge school taking up a quarter of a section up here, and there are a couple times a day when you just do not want to be on that road. And it sounds like you have already taken that into consideration, so I appreciate that. And the questions here brought up another subject. Not as concerned about the current purchase or rezoning, but where does it go from here if the property is resold? And that goes back to some of the questions you've already had. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak on this case? Anyone else from the public?
Sir, I don't mind addressing her questions about the screening and landscaping. The way the code is written is the existing trees meet the landscaping requirements. They don't have to necessarily add any or remove. Based on the density of the evergreen trees, it meets the screening requirements, but should anything to be provided in the future, it has to be on their property. So any landscaping or type of work you want to do on your property should not be impacted because it's not doing anything to your property. It has to be all on theirs. And the minimum screening would just be a fence. Again, the landscaping is already there. It would take quite some time for those trees to sparse out enough for them to have to add any more. But that's, if this were to be rezoned, that's a standard condition that goes with the property. But again, everything happens on the subject property and not on neighboring properties.
Call on the applicant. You have 2 minutes if you have any rebuttal that you'd like to make.
I just want to assure the neighbor that I love trees, and I just fell in love with that backyard. It was like a meadow. That's what I call it. It was so green and beautiful. And if you saw where I live, it's surrounded by trees, even though it's in a residential area. My backyard is common ground, and I never cut down trees. And it'll stay beautiful that way as long as I live. And anything I can do to keep good peace with a neighbor, I'll do it. And I notice on the north side, there's more space that's open, and I would be willing to add more cedar trees if the neighbor on the north did not like looking at a so-called funeral home. But that building is beautiful. When you drive up that hill and look at that building, it's beautiful. And when you get out and just see the backyard, that's peace, so peaceful. It's a very beautiful surrounding for people to have to enter into a funeral service. And anyway, we love it, and we hope we do justice to the neighborhood, and we just want to be proud of what we do for people. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the commission now for discussion.
Make a motion we approve subject to staff comments.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. McKay, a second from Mr. Johnson. Yes, Mr. Aldridge.
Yeah, I just want to say, I do have some concerns on this. It's surrounded by SF5 zoning right now, and even staff, as far as the conformance to policy and plans, they said it's partially in conformance that, you know, the more than likely the area of land will be likely developed, or, you know, by 2035 is predominantly found in residential category. And again, I've got concerns on that if we do change the zoning, then you're going to be locked in pretty much on that. And, you know, we're sort of hurting for sites right now, I guess, for residential, and I think this is right in the middle of a, you know, potential residential development right there, and I've got concerns. is all.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose a substitute motion.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Green.
Yeah, my concern is in line with Mr. Aldrich. I've already shared what it is. The language that Mr. Zevenberger gave concerning the property remaining SF5 with the rights of a funeral home that are allowed in GO, or is it the other way around?
So essentially, the zone chain goes through its GO, but you have a protective overlay that restricts the uses on the property to those permitted by right in SF5, in addition to funeral home as allowed in GO.
And that way then, when the property sells, it would revert back to SF5?
It doesn't revert. Those are just the uses to where if they want to add additional uses in GO in the future, they have to amend the PO through a public hearing process or a different zone change.
Okay.
The zoning would stay GO, it'd be approved for GO, the uses would be restricted back to what it is now with the additional use as a funeral home. It doesn't revert if it's changed, those are the zoning rights that move forward with the property. Any changes in the future require a public hearing to add additional uses.
Okay, and so there would be that would be what I would recommend unless there's a way to keep it SF5 with, okay, so what Mr. Zevenberger said is what my motion is. My substitute motion is to allow the property to be what he said.
Second, what he said.
Okay, we have a
You have
substitute
heavy
motion
influence,
by
Mr.
Mr.
Aldrich.
Green and second by Ms. Fox. I see a couple other comments over here. Vote on the substitute motion.
Do you feel we should do a roll call vote?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Mr. Dool,
No.
Foster,
Aye.
McKay,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Bill Johnson, Nix,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Miles,
Aye.
Zimbelman, Aldrich,
Aye.
and Williams Bay.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-2.
Okay, we have resolution. Okay, we're going to move on now to case 4.10.
Good afternoon, everyone. Christina Reith with planning staff. This is 4 cases in one. We have Zone 2023-00067, CUP 2023-00041, CUP 2023-00042, and CUP 2023-00043. The applicants are requesting a zone change from limited commercial district to general commercial district in everything that you see that's outlined, that has the green and red stripes. Happy holidays. Amending CUP DP 15 to add additional land, which involves amending CUP DP 48 and DP 116 to remove land. So CUP DP 116 is currently this L shape here. CUP DP 48 is currently this shape here. So everything that you see again in the hash marks will become a part of CUP DP 15. For those of you who are not familiar, CUP is a community unit plan, and it is a commercial development that is 6 acres or greater. The subject site for the zone change of the CUP amendments is made up of 3 CUPs that I mentioned earlier, and 2 parcels of land down here that were once part of a right-of-way for an interchange for US Highway 54 400 and I-35. CUP DP 15 is currently undeveloped. CUP DP 116 is developed with 5 hotels, including a Marriott hotel that I'll mention later in my report, a post office, a corporate office, a financial institution, a reserve, and a creek. Properties presently within CUP DP 48 are developed with 2 hotels. The subject site is 38 acres in size and located on the northwest corner of East Kellogg Drive and South Webb Road. The applicant is adding land to CUP DP 15 and simultaneously removing land from the other CUPs in order to create one CUP over land owned and managed by one ownership. So let's talk about the zone change. As I mentioned earlier, everything that you see that is in the red and green stripes is what they're proposing to go from limited commercial to general commercial. GC general commercial generally permits high-intensity commercial and limited industrial development. However, there is the CUP case 2023-00042, which pertains to this CUP, DP 15, and it restricts the uses that are listed in your staff report here. So some of those include correctional placement residents, recycling processing centers, sexually oriented business in the city, asphalt or concrete plant, so a lot of more intensive uses, right? If we look at this zoning map right now, everything that you see in pink is zoned GC general commercial. And so let's talk about the CUP amendments. So in short, what they're looking to do is remove land from 116 and 48 and add them to 15. So these are considered to be amendments because you're taking land away from the CUPs and then adding them to CUP DP 15. So then the applicant seeks to amend the general provisions of CUP DP 15. So many of the revised provisions, such as lighting standards, parking, and the process to make any future changes to the CUP are consistent with the zoning code and what's permitted in the GC zoning district. So the proposed maximum height for parcels 1 and 6 of CUP DP 15, actually, could we go to the drawing of CUP DP 15 so I can talk about the parcels? Thank you. So this is parcel 1 and this is parcel 6. So the maximum height for those parcels, they're proposing to be 130 feet. And the proposed maximum height for parcels 2, 3, 4, and 5, which are at the bottom here, is 80 feet. So normally, if this were not in a CUP, the maximum height for GC zoning is 80 feet plus 2 feet of additional height for each foot of setback beyond the required minimum setbacks. Another thing to take into consideration here is that this CUP is within Zone B on the airport hazard zone map for Textron Airport, which is immediately east of the subject site. So because of that, the maximum height of all buildings within that airport hazard zone map is 75 feet. However, I'll show you a photo of the existing Marriott Hotel. It is approximately 115 feet tall. So in order to exceed this height restriction, the applicant must obtain a determination of no hazard by the FAA. And additionally, the height of the structures cannot pierce any glide slopes of the runway without receiving approval by the Wichita City Council. So when it comes to screening and landscaping, that's one of the things they're looking to revise. So Section 3C 2B2 of the Unified Zoning Code requires non-residential CUPs to provide a 6-foot screening wall along property lines that abut residential zoning. The west property line of CUP DP 15 abuts a drainage way that is partially zoned SF5 single family district. Could we please go to the aerial so I could show where the creek is? Thank you. So this is the drainage way that I mentioned in my report here. So the amendment to CUP DP 15 proposes no requirement for a screening wall on the west lines of the CUP due to the existing landscape screening and the setbacks provided by the existing drainage way on the west. The applicant also requests that the zoning code's compatibility height and setback standards not apply to this CUP, again, due to the existing landscape screening and the setbacks provided by the existing drainage ways to the west, as well as the highway to the south. The setback along East Kellogg Drive is shown on the CUP drawing at 35 feet, which meets the zoning code standard for non-residential CUP setback along a street frontage. The CUP proposes that all other setbacks that are not shown on the drawing adhere to the zoning code based on general commercial district zoning. Normally, compatibility and height standards shall apply to GC zoning when uses are located within 50 feet of a property zoned TF3 or more restrictive. So no structure would be able to exceed 35 feet in height within 50 feet of the lot line. But if we look at the west property line, like I mentioned, there is that drainage way, and then this part that I have on my mouse here is zoned SF5, but they're not developable because it's located within a flood zone. They also want to have some revisions to the signage for CUP DP 15. It would permit development identification signs in addition to the permitted number of on-site monument, pole, and or pylon type signs. You can see there's a table in your report that shows a review of the proposed signage allowance as they relate to the standards of the sign code. Staff does not support permitting sign area that exceeds the minimum area permitted by the sign code. The monument, pole, and or pylon type sign shall be 150 feet apart, which adhere to the standards of the sign code. However, the CUP would permit the proposed development identification signs to be 75 feet from other monument, pole, and or pylon type signs. So this is less than the 150-foot sign separation in the standards of the sign code. But if we look at a lot of other modern CUPs, they have this 75-foot separation. The CUP also proposes a maximum height of 50 feet for all 3 proposed development identification signs. All other non-development identification signs shall have a maximum height of 31 feet. There are similar signs in the area that exceed 50 feet in height, such as that at Town East Mall and the Eastgate Shopping Center, the Longhorn Steakhouse sign there. Those are in excess of 50 feet. The applicant proposes that all monument, pylon, and pole-type signs within all 3 CUPs that you see here be considered on-site, and as such, signs are permitted to advertise for parcels reciprocally between the CUPs. Staff does not support this proposal, 1, because it is opposed to the standards of the sign code, and 2, this is not legally allowed because all of the owners within all 3 CUPs would have had to sign off on this application in order for it to move forward with that provision. So lastly, the applicant proposes 2 off-site signs along the Kellogg Drive frontage road, provided they are not spaced less than 330 feet apart from any off-site signs, which is in conformance with the sign code. The sign code also does not allow for more than 5 off-site signs facing the same direction of travel within 1 mile of a designated street. So as I was taking site photos for this application, I drove between Webb and Rock Road, and there are currently 3 off-site signs that face East Kellogg within the designated mile of South Webb Road and South Rock Road, and those are listed in your report. Skipping ahead here. The proposed applications are in conformance with the Community Investments Plan. The 2035 Wichita Future Growth Concept Map identifies the site as primarily appropriate for new employment and commercial uses. New employment is defined in the plan as areas that will likely be developed or redeveloped by 2035 with uses that constitute centers or concentrations of employment primarily in manufacturing, warehousing, distribution, construction, research, technology, business services, or corporate offices. Major shopping centers and office parks likely will be developed within this area as well. The proposed applications are also in conformance with the Community Investment Plan's locational guidelines that state that major commercial and employment centers should be located at intersections of arterial streets and along highways and commercial corridors. As we can see here, the subject site is requesting a higher intensity commercial use and is located along a highway and an arterial street. Now, commissioners, when you make your motions today, there needs to be 4 separate motions, 1 for each case. So based upon the information at the time the staff report was prepared, staff recommends the amendment to CUPD P15 be approved, subject to the staff recommended language, and then all other requirements of the CUP remain in effect, or unless or until a separate zoning action is filed. And then the applicant shall submit 4 revised copies of the CUP to the Planning Department within 60 days. As for the other 2 CUP motions, we are recommending approval, and they have the same conditions there. And then for the zone change from limited commercial to general commercial, we are recommending approval. And these recommendations are based on the golden rules. So regarding public comment, I did drop off a number of comments that were provided to me within the last few days. I also did submit some public comment via email, and then I did receive some phone calls, as I mentioned in my staff report. Now, this went to the DAB on Monday, and they recommended denial of the zone change 4-2. They recommended approval of CUPD P15 amendment with screening and landscaping requirements. And then they had no recommendation for the other 2 CUP amendments pertaining to CUPD Ps 116 and 48. Their motions were 3-3. So let's take a look at some of the site photos here. So this, okay, yeah, let's just go to the site photos. So this is looking north towards the site. We have a Fairfield hotel, and then the Marriott Hotel is in the background here, and it is 115 feet tall. Next slide, please. This is looking east away from the hotel. We have the post office and 2 more hotels here. Next slide, please. This is looking east away from the site. The airport is immediately past those buildings. Next slide, please. This is looking west towards the existing Marriott. Next slide, please. This is looking south towards the highway. Next slide, please. This is looking north away from the site. This is actually at the top of CUPDP 116. Next slide, please. This is looking south towards 116. Next slide, please. This is looking west towards 116. Next slide, please. And that concludes my photos. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Is that all clear as mud? Mr. Aldridge.
Yep, my question, can you point out where partial 2 is?
Paul, could we please go to the CUPDP 15 slide, please? This is parcel, oh, my mouse doesn't go that far down. This one here is parcel 2.
Okay, because we're looking at one side here, it looks like that whole section up there was partial 2, that might have been an old one. I guess my question is there a concern or a question about ownership regarding partial 2 based on some of the comments that we received on this?
I'm sorry, could you please clarify your question for me?
Yeah, there seems to be a question about the way I'm reading this thing. It may not, we received a comment by Barbara Maxwell, who's the owner of partial 2, and that's what I was wondering where partial 2 is.
So she's the
on
owner of
this.
parcel 2 within CUPDP 116.
Okay, so this partial 2 is not involved in this?
Correct. Her land is not going to CUPDP 15. So this is, yeah, so this is the Maxwell ownership right here, where my mouse is.
Okay, so that has no bearing at all on this then?
The removal, yeah, because her land is not being a part of CUPDP 15.
Okay, that's the only
There's
question
no-
I had.
yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions of staff? If not, I call on the owner or applicant to come forward. Please give us your name and address, and you'll have 10 minutes.
Could you please pull up the MKEC presentation? My name is Brian Lindeback, MKEC Engineering on behalf of the owner and applicant. I'm going to try to speak louder because I know at the DAB meeting, some of the folks could not hear, and particularly Mrs. Maxwell, so I want to make sure I honor her needs. But if you could pull that up, please, and skip to the second slide. I think, just want to make sure everybody is following along with this case. It seems kind of complicated, but it's really not. It's adding and subtracting from 3 different CUPs and adding it to 1 CUP. So that's in a real basic sense what we're doing, and then we're applying a zone change to that 1 CUP, and it just so happens that 1 CUP is DP 15, and it was established a long time ago. There's just some basics. So I've highlighted here for you. This is CUP DP 15 in gold, and just to recap, this is in green. This is 48, and then in kind of this coral or red color, that is 116. DP 116. Here's the Marriott. Here's Fairfield Inn. The applicant does also own this property here on the corner, as well as he purchased all this frontage from the city of Wichita just last year. I believe the purchase price is published in city council minutes, but I think it's in the tune of like $8.7 million. One of the main drivers for this purchase was to gain access to the frontage road for the Marriott and the other properties that he owns and maintains, and also to enhance the Marriott and the other properties here for which he owns. So the goal is to improve this area, and I believe as part of that application and purchase process, there was substantial presentations that were given to the city of Wichita and some different criteria. He's recently built a road that connects the Marriott to the frontage, and that's generally shown here. You might note on the application that the city of Wichita is actually part of this application, and that's because they own this little piece here. That part is also being amended and removed from the CUP, so all that will remain of 48 is just this green parcel here. So that in the very basic sense, that's what we're doing. It's not, the zone change only affects this area in red. All of the other provisions are left alone on the green parcel and the red parcel, and all the provisions are added to the yellow parcel that's all here. Previously, that CUP only had 4 provisions. Now it has 16 provisions. So we've definitely modernized it with the current state of things. I'd like to also mention, I think it's, I don't know if anybody's been to this property recently, but the owner has definitely renovated the Marriott to a high standard, as well as his other properties here nearby, the Country Inn here on the corner, and then of course the Fairfield is not a very old hotel, so he's definitely making improvements to the area, and he wishes to continue to enhance and further benefit this area by that. Maybe next slide, please. Okay, this is just a kind of echoing what was already presented by staff. This is a general commercial across the street, general commercial. Limited industrial, as many of you know, this is Costco. This is Beechcraft, YMCA. All these items in red, that's all limited commercial. This parcel here is also part of the CUP that we just talked about, 6116. While it shows on the zoning map as SF5, that if you read through the provisions of the CUP, it's actually calling for multifamily. So just wanted to point that out, that is an existing condition. I also want to point out the fact that we have a 210-foot creek buffer here. And I'll go ahead and slip to the next slide, if you will, please. This is taking this top, these are both panoramic photos, so you'll kind of see the fisheye of that kind of. This is towards the commercial end of that, if you recall that limited commercial on the south, and this is the fence corner where it turns to residential. So as you can see from here, it's a very substantial landscape buffer. And then if we wanted to, we could zoom in, you could see that you can barely see the hotels there. And likewise, here's a view from that Southwest Parkway, which is generally in the middle of the residential area. To the south, that is Bonnie Bray neighborhood. So again, as you can see, this is a leaf off condition. Those trees are much taller than any wall would screen. And one thing that the DAB recommended was that we provide for a screening wall there. And I would think that's unnecessary given this distance and as well the landscape buffer. Next slide, please. This is a 1966 landscape plan for the Kmart that was once there. That's the landscape buffer that I was just talking about. I did have our landscape architect go out and view this area. He did note that there are a few variations in the plant species, but most every one of these plants is on the ground out there. Look like they might have substituted some elm trees, or maybe they grew in the 40, 50 years or whatever that is. Next slide, please. This is just some nearby properties. This is the post office. As you can see, they've got incidental outside storage of their vehicles, and as well as storage of their other materials nearby. This is the hotel that I mentioned is owned by the applicant. This is a kind of an older hotel that was that's been there for a long time, but that's I'm not sure it was Residence Inn or what it is, but that's the property there. But as you know, there's a lot of hotels here. There's I believe 7 hotels. So next slide, please. This is the ownership list that we used. It's 1,000 feet around the subject property. It included all of the parcels within all CUPs. So every owner was notified as part of the case. Next slide, please. I did meet with the neighborhood HOA. This is a copy of their report. So these 4 folks were at the meeting, as well as 2 others. They're apparently on the board, or if this is a current listing. I did meet with them on the night of December 4th at the Marriott, and we went through the whole case item by item, answering any questions they had. They didn't have any questions, and they were very happy that we took the time to do that, as it's not a requirement of this process, but we definitely want to reach out to the neighbors, knowing that they have had voiced opinions in the past of nearby zone changes. Next slide. And this is just referring to the off-site signs. I wanted to make maybe a little distinction that I think this staff report talks about, that there's 3 off-site signs already there, but that's it needs to be mentioned that it's in the direction of travel, that they're viewable. So those off-site signs across the street, there's one of them, and if you do the next slide, they're not visible, they're not advertising from this direction of travel, whereas this one is on the frontage road. If you're tracking where I'm at, this is in the direction of travel. So there's only one off-site sign within that mile of the property. And this one's roughly 27 feet tall, which is what we're asking for the one sign. And then on the corner as an option, it's undetermined if we'll actually use these signs, off-site signs, but we would like the option for it. And as you can see, the signs are very tall in this corridor. We've situated the CUP with signage very much like we've done in other parts of Wichita, particularly East Wichita. We've got the signs set up to match that. We actually did the zone change for the signs over there by the Ford dealership, and as well as over at Plazio development at K96 and 13th. I definitely set this up with a notion of having a development sign like that. And I think next slide, there's the off-site signs that we're discussing in the staff report. Basically, these become off-site signs to our new CUP, DP 15, because they're part of DP 116. Next slide. And I think the next slide is, if you guys have any questions about the airport overlay or any of that thing, I can certainly answer them, but this is just to show you we've definitely done some research. And next slide, please. Try to be quick here. I think it goes without saying there's been a significant amount of public investment in this area for transportation. It is one of the most busiest, highly traveled intersections in Wichita, and I know the developer is a local developer. He wants to do right by Wichita. He wants to bring this area up from where it is right now, which is not really generating any income for Wichita. And I know that he wants to add restaurants and things that are compatible for his land uses that he has right there. Like I said, the building heights are very compatible with the nearby properties and nearby conditions. The height of the actual height I had it measured at 126 feet. Not Hyatt, but this owner also owns the Hyatt downtown. But this one is 126 feet for the Marriott. So that's why we've asked for 130 feet for those 2 parcels, with the front parcels being a little bit lower. So that'll stand for any questions.
Bring it back to the commission questions. Mr. Aldrich.
I know you have a chance to review the staff report. So do you support and agree with staff recommendations and comments, with the exception of the few things you pointed out?
Yeah, we're in agreement with staff comments, and we could sort out that off-site signage some other time. It's not the primary focus of this endeavor. Having signage along Kellogg is crucial, and as see, I'm on one of my bullet points here. I don't want to read all these things. You can read for yourself, but yeah, signage is very crucial for this commercial development, and it's also crucial for the community to have a viable commercial development. And I would one more thing. I didn't see any of the staff or any of the neighbor comments. No one provided those to me, but I do know in speaking with some of them, they have concerns about the historic nature of the property and access. I will assure you, all the property that was rezoned is owned by the applicant, not by someone else. And any agreements of record aren't being altered by this zoning action. So I think it's important to note that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for the speaker? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this? Please approach the podium, give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Don't get per case 3 minutes. No. Okay, my name is Tara Mulhagan Shepherd. I live at 268 South Bonnie Bray. And could we actually go to the first page of MKEC's presentation there? So I'm a mother of two. My little kiddos are growing up in this neighborhood. Our neighborhood has no sidewalks. It's an older neighborhood. And one of the things we're very worried about is, from what I can understand, and it is quite complicated, and so I'm trying to get done what I can in 3 minutes. If we remove that parcel 6, that one that they own under 116, it seems as though that complete control and access that Wichita enjoys would go away, because they would move it to 115. And that to us is very scary, because again, we walk on the streets. We don't have another option. There's no sidewalks. In addition to that, I am all for economic development. So when I say parcel 6, I mean,
You can use the mouse.
I'm gonna waste all my time, sorry. So I mean like this area. And so it currently says that Wichita has complete control and access, but I'm sorry, I have to move on. I don't have too much time. So with I can't slow down, 116, so that's one of the things that I'm scared about with 116 is the access. And then the other big thing is billboards. Well, let me go back. I'll go zoning change. So we are all for economic development. We agree with them. He should get his signage up here. All of this is more commercial. What we're worried about is these areas right in our backyard. I have 4 windows of my house that overlook this property. We're worried that signage, we're worried that heavier industrial use, especially if they're not required to put up a wall or to maintain landscaping, we're worried that all of that would come straight into our backyards, and that would affect the enjoyment and use of our properties. And yes, he says there's not income coming, like there's not business income from those specific parts, but there's homes. And yeah, we're not producing income, but we are homes and we enjoy where we live. And I'd like to point out, they say that everything's in line because there's commercial properties, but you guys know Crossing Kellogg. Crossing Kellogg is a chore. And it is because once you get across that Kellogg, yes, it's a lot more commercial right over there. But we have 3 neighborhoods. We have Forest Hills over here. I think it's Rockwell Walk something over here, and Bonnie Bray over here. If you look at those areas, they're nestled in pretty residential. And I don't think it's too much to ask that these areas, the Wiedemann addition and this triangle part, they're not subject to the zoning change to make it heavier commercial use, because that's just not in line with that property. And if they do go forward, if you guys do the zoning change without any exception for those places that we're very worried about, then we would at least ask that they would have to do business hours, so we wouldn't have our homes, my bedroom window, my 3-month-old bedroom window flooded with light at 2 a.m. in the morning. And I think I put that in written comments. Thank you for your time. Please reject the zoning change, reject amendment to CUP 116 to protect homeowners, because I know money talks, but I like to think fairness, response. Do I get 2 extra minutes for closing or no?
I can give you another minute if you could wrap it up.
Oh yeah, I can wrap it up. So at the very least, when they were talking about specifically what DAB, because as you know, DAB rejected the zoning change for the concerns that we just said, heavier commercial use. But as far as the split on the landscaping, so if you saw in MKEC's presentation, the closer you get to Kellogg, I think there was like 1 tree over there. I don't think that's sufficient screening and wouldn't be under the requirements, especially along that Wiedemann addition. It's sparse. They did mention that landscape was done in 1966. I don't know if you know the lifetime of a tree, but I had to cut down a 70-year-old one, and that person told me that they usually don't live that long. A lot of the trees are dying, and so we would really like that they would have to be that they would have to maintain a landscape and put a wall where there's not a lot of landscape. With that said, there is some landscape on other parts, but to treat all of these properties the same when they're very different, I think they're asking too much, and I don't know what the clear benefit is.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this case? Excuse me, could you come back up? We have a couple of questions, I think.
Yes, of course.
Could you point out the location of your home?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not a residential person. Oh, right, mouse, my bad. Sorry, guys. So my home is here, so I overlook here. But with the HOA, he did mention that they told our HOA. They did not tell us. And from when I talked to the HOA president, the reason they didn't come and talk to members of our community was that, and this is what he said, he was told that they were only thinking about putting a restaurant or something of similar nature, which would all be under limited commercial. There would be no reason for rezoning. So that is why they didn't go forward with the community and say, hey, watch out. Because there's like my neighbors, I mean, this one, they have kids, that there's a sidewalk here. And they oftentimes go over into, and I know they shouldn't be trespassing, but they often go over into this area and mess along in here. And so there's just various protections, and I mean, it's just a very residential area.
Thank you.
So,
Yes.
did I understand you correctly? So you would take your children, you'd walk across all that area, like to the Marriott or to one of those places? I mean, there's no sidewalks, but you would walk all through there?
Oh, so two parts to that. So I've seen children do that because my house overlooks this. I have 4 windows that look over this, so I pretty much see what's happening over there all the time. And I have a 2-story house, so it's elevated. The children from one of these houses, there's a sidewalk that goes along here, and they'll walk along that to go into this area. There's also a jogging path, and I'm not real sure. There's like a jogging path in through here that I think Rough and maintain, and the agent would have to clarify on that. So there are like more public-y areas in there. There's a jogging path. I've biked along that sidewalk along here. But yes, I have
thought
seen
I heard
children.
You said you walk in the street, and I was trying to understand
Oh.
streets you walk.
Yeah, sorry, I had to go way too fast, but I only had 3 minutes. So when I mentioned that part, the thing that I'm worried about is under the current CUP, and please do correct me if I'm reading it wrong, it said under 116, it says that complete control and access to Bonnie Bray. So that's our neighborhood. So I'm saying we wouldn't want a road that would go to our neighborhood because that would be detrimental to our neighborhood. That's where we don't have sidewalks. So we have to walk, our entire neighborhood, we have to walk along the streets, and you'll often see people jogging, yeah.
Ma'am, do you have any issues with East Kellogg or Kellogg Drive at all as far as any noise or sound or any concerns with that?
So luckily with Kellogg Drive, they have a wall, and that's one of the things that I'm really worried about, a wall, because I know, yes, trees, they provide visual screen, but not as much noise barrier. And so we surprisingly don't hear that much noise from Kellogg because you've seen, it's that concrete, we're where that concrete is. Yes, I do hear if somebody's trying to, some people who are trying to race Kellogg, and I'm like, well, I hope the cops get that one. You're like, but other than that, I was surprised when we were looking at the house, we were worried about that very thing, and it is not bad.
How long have you lived there?
I have lived there 3 years now.
Okay, so you knew by checking your neighborhood out and you knew what the surrounding neighborhood looked like. You knew about the developments that possibly could occur and some of the businesses, and you knew about the Kellogg and everything else prior to buying a house, correct?
Well, we knew it was limited commercial, and that's what they're trying to change, and it's not clear why and for what plan. And then we knew that the other was residential. So the majority, this all part is that, I think he said multifamily residential. And so yes, we knew that part that we're overlooking, and then this part that all of this was limited commercial and that this was residential.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anyone else present who would like to speak on this case? Please approach the podium, give us your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes, and please confine your comments to new material.
I'll try to do that. My name is Michelle Hay, and I live at 262 South Bonnie Bray, and this is my residence right here. I want to touch on what Tara was speaking about, possibly opening up our street. I spend a lot of time outside, and I disagree somewhat about the noise, because being in that area and going to Costco and the post office, we're on those roads a lot, and there are a lot of drag racing going down Kellogg westbound. And they also drag on the frontage road, Kellogg Drive, whatever it is. And my neighbor to the north of me, Betty, she's 90 years old, she wanted us to pass along that in years past, our road was open to Kellogg. Many of those streets did go out to Kellogg, and she said she ended up with 5 accidents at different times in her front yard. Her mailbox was knocked over multiple times, and she said they really had to fight to limit the traffic that went through Bonnie Bray, because she said people would come down, and instead of going up to Rock Road, they would cut through Bonnie Bray. Speed limits there are 20, but we have traffic right now going 40. And I know some of those people probably still live there, but she's very concerned about that, as am I. Tara is our neighbor, and I worry about her little kids out there. She's got a stroller and bicycles, and she's not the only family. There are dozens of families that we do walk on the streets. I don't believe there's any room for sidewalks in our neighborhood. It's an older neighborhood, and the one thing we like about the neighborhood is the charm of the woods behind us. And Gypsum Creek does flow behind our homes, all of us on Bonnie Bray on that abut up to the creek. And I'm not sure who knows that area, but Gypsum Creek floods terribly. All of our backyards, we have lost feet. I know for a fact, right here, in this area here, we did get the city to come and put large boulders there, but we have lost 4 to 6 feet of the bank because of flooding. Now that water will go up on the site over in here that they're also speaking of. It'll come up to this area, and I'm worried that anything that is put in this area, where will the runoff water go? This last rain we had a few months ago, I mean, it was 1 to 2 inches.
Time's up.
It is? Okay.
You could wrap it up and give you another 30 seconds.
Thank you. I'm worried about the water runoff, because that creek was within a foot of the Kellogg Drive bridge. And also, they showed some pictures earlier of the incline that goes up to this property right in here. That goes up another 15, 20 feet. So any sign, any building, we're going to have full view of, just because it's so much further up than all of our homes are. And so I would really like to discourage opening up Bonnie Bray. We're not opposed to development, but we have to keep the integrity of our neighborhood, and we ask that you keep that in mind when voting. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this issue? Please approach the podium and give us your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
Can you see me? I'm Catherine Rush. I live at 260
262 South Bonnie Bray Street. The only thing I wanted to add was, yes, the noise is horrific. It would be nice to have some sort of barrier from Kellogg. The other thing is in regard to Gypsum Creek, one of my concerns is while the building, whatever building, is being done on this new area, I would be concerned with any type of water going into Gypsum Creek. And as Shelley Hay mentioned, yes, the water gets high. And to give you a better idea, 2 blocks to the north of me is Independent School. It sits just to the east of my street, Bonnie Bray. And we have had rain that we had fire pit furniture put out. The rain was so bad, it came up, it washed the furniture, everything, and 2 ricks of wood away. And what we got in place of it was an industrial dumpster from Independence. It floated down the creek, came up in my yard, and was lodged against a tree. So I'm really concerned with anybody draining anything in there, directing any runoff into that during building or just in general. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Any questions?
Is there
Okay,
anyone else that would like to speak on this?
thank you.
Please approach the podium and give us your name. You'll have 3 minutes. Your name and address, please.
Thank you very much for hearing me. I am Barbara Andre Maxwell, and this is my trustee, Matthew Gajewski. I am the Maxwell that is associated with the parcels under question. I live in New York, in a small town called Niskayuna, upstate, and I just purchased a home here in Wichita because I was starting some planning and development for my land. I live at 2381 Algonquin Road in Schenectady, New York, the town of Niskayuna. My nephew has just moved into, and I won't say he's my nephew, he's my trustee, just moved into a home in Willow Bend on Jasmine at 3914 Jasmine. His last name is Gajewski, Gajewski, as we pronounce it, but it's Gajewski in Polish. I'm not going to be able to do this in 3 minutes because I've been involved with this for too many years. As I said, my name is Barbara Andre Maxwell, and you have a write-up, I'm sure, that was given to you by Christina, who did a lovely presentation working on this project, along with Brian from MKEC. Upon receipt of the staff report on page 17, parcel 7 included a description of apartments and townhouses. Everyone knows where parcel 7 is because it was just referred to by the neighbors. Thank you, Matthew. When I looked at the map and I read the document, staff report, I became totally shocked because I was unaware, and it was just unbeknownst to me that back in 1985, when things were starting to happen there was an apartment building and townhouses on my agricultural farmland. That was just this last week. And I went, what is this? Okay. The parcel currently under consideration for a CUP change, removal of CUP 116 into CUP number 15, near the south center of the Maxwell family quarter section, which has been owned by the Maxwell family since 1869, 154 years. I present a brief history to you, not only on the land, but on what is involved in this zoning. And the changes remaining on the Maxwell, I'm sorry, I have to ask for more time. I came all the way from New York. I left here on December 6th, and I came back on December 9th. And over the age of 80, traveling all that way, Schenectady, Atlanta to Wichita, within a 3-day period, I am not only exhausted, I am extremely tired, and I cannot do this in 3 minutes. I'm over 80.
I can give you another minute, ma'am, but we have rules.
Well, I hope you do, because I don't want to get more upset than what I am. Thank you, I'll calm down. Important and very necessary to say that my ownership has not been acknowledged properly by the parties working on this zoning change, nor the agricultural classification that it carries. And it has not been addressed adequately, and I'm beginning to think it is a possible plan of omission. Because I only find my name on one page, or I find my name, Maxwell, on many pages, and I will say this, but I am not referred to other than on page 6, and I'm quoted as being vacant, because I owned over 22 and a half acres on that parcel, that great big parcel of land. You can see the map. I'm not going to go over the sales of the Beechcraft Employees Credit Union land, the United States Post Office land, or the Atrium Building 101. I won't go over all those because you have the information. The partnership was dissolved in 1991 between my husband, Hugh Maxwell, and Phil Ruffin. That's 32 years ago. Maxwell was able to sell some additional parcels once the partnership was dissolved. But the remainder has been in agricultural use because I cannot afford to pay taxes if you change the classification. I did accompany my husband, Hugh Maxwell. We were not married at the time, to a trial where Ruffin Properties real estate broker employee, Gary Schneider, was suing the partnership, suing my husband and Phil Ruffin for his Marriott idea, his introduction to Marriott, his coordination of the sale, and his commission. He wasn't being paid, so he sued my husband and Phil to be paid for what he had done. When I saw that and understood what happened, because I came all the way here for that court hearing, I really began to understand and became very cognizant of the situation during the trial. I was ready to run away. I met Hugh in San Francisco in 1989. We were married in Wichita on the 21st of February in 1991. So a lot of these things I didn't know about or understand. Over the years, I was devoted to my husband, and my income became the support for many of our needs. You need to know that Hugh lived to the age of 94 because I took care of him. I am over 80 years of age.
You really need to wrap this
I am
up
over 80 years of age, and I understand elder abuse.
There's people here
In
that
the
have
past,
time that they need to use.
I know.
So please wrap
I know.
this up.
I'm the last on your program. I am over 80 years of age. I've witnessed elder
You're not
abuse.
the last one on
And
the
in the
program,
past,
ma'am. We have
I am
another
now,
case after yours.
I am now experiencing myself elder abuse. I am extremely concerned about the neighbors that are in West Parkway. And I feel like
Mr. Chairman,
I feel like I'm being landlocked.
Mr. Chairman, we've allowed this speaker to go 1 minute beyond our normal time, and I've set my timer 2 minutes after that went over, and she's gone another 2 minutes. We need to.
I can appreciate.
I will
the thought, but if
summarize.
you
I
wanna
will
submit what
summarize.
you've
I'm
got
2
or stamped in
pages. I will
writing, We will
summarize.
attach it to this, but I can't allow you to speak anymore. We need to move on. I'm sorry.
The lack of the proposal of high walls, mature trees, and the addition of proposed tall lighting is a concern not only for me, but it disturbs me to think that it's going to affect Bonnie Bray.
Mr. Chairman, can we go ahead and continue on with our meeting?
I think we need to, ma'am. You're going to have to sit down. We need to wrap this meeting up. So please sit down. You can submit everything that you're reading to the staff, but we don't have time to listen to this now. Please let us conduct our meeting.
I'm glad you're smiling. Because I got on the microphone, I assume that's what it's for.
Okay, at this point, I am going to, is there anybody else that wants to speak on this? Otherwise, I'm going to call the agent back. One more? Okay, you have 3 minutes, and please contain your comments to new information. State your name and address.
Mike Ronfelt, 8416 East Willowbrook Road. The biggest concern I want to bring up is Gypsum Creek and the floodplain that is in that area. I live right on the corner where the water comes around the corner and heads south towards Kellogg. Last May, when it flooded, the water going under Kellogg and the access road and those 3 viaducts that were new with the brand new building up of Kellogg, the water was within 1 foot of filling all 3 viaducts. If it fills that, it is going to go under the road right here, and it's going to go down Southeastern Avenue Drive across under Kellogg, and it's going to flood the homes on the other side. I don't know that anybody's ever looked at that. It's this road right here that goes under the Kellogg and under the access roads. I live right here on the corner, and I walked all the way down here. I've got a picture of it if you want to see it, of that water being within a foot of the top of those viaducts. This whole valley from here, from this blue line, all the way over to this lake was full of water. And if something gets built here, or if there's a road put in to come into Bonnie Bray, it's going to get flooded. It floods my backyard. It floods this whole area down here. I know that there was that dumpster that came against a tree up there in this area. And this whole back area, when it floods all the way across here. So if you've never seen it, I know I've talked to the city about it, and they really weren't interested in understanding how full those viaducts were when we had that flood warning. But I was really worried that it was going to come all the way up to my house, because it was just about to breach the top of those viaducts. I appreciate you guys' time. If you guys reject the applications of the applicant, especially with CUP 15, let's consider the residents that are across the creek. I don't think you guys have considered us at all. I think you really need to look at that. And if you deny it, they can come back and we can talk about residential again then. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to be heard on this case? If not, I will call the agent back up for rebuttal.
Thank you. I'd just like to address a couple of Tara's, Miss Shepherd's comments. Access, I just want to make a point. We did not change any provisions of the CUP. If it allows for access over here, which I don't believe it does, we did not touch any provisions of that CUP. The only thing we've done is delete. We deleted these parcels from it. So I just want to reiterate that. As far as industrial uses aren't going to be very compatible with this. Obviously, the developer is not going to probably be doing industrial uses. As far as water runoff, if you notice on one of my slides, I had this shown, and this is unplatted property. As part of the development process, this will have to be replatted, and if there's any drainage concerns, it'll be addressed again, because this was once developed with that plat. And I think that addresses most everything. I would just mention that I think there was confusion with the DAB when they voted for this. They voted to approve the CUP in yellow here. They voted to not to approve the other two CUP amendments, and they voted to deny the zone change. It's kind of a one without the other. The only thing that could be done without the other is the zone change. But these CUP amendments all functionally work together. You can approve them separately, but they all function together because we're removing one and adding it to another. So I just want to make that point.
Sir, got a quick question.
Public comment time is over at this point.
I have a quick question for the applicant.
Back to the commission now.
Yes.
Just to clarify.
Yes, sir.
You have no intentions of putting a public thoroughfare over into Bonnie Brae, correct?
We don't have any ownership to that connectivity, so we can't unless someone else wants to do it. We don't have any ownership to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yes, Philip?
I just feel the need to provide some clarification regarding the access to Bonnie Brae. If you guys want to look on page 14 of your staff reports, these are the general provisions for CUP DP 116. Parcel 7 of DP 116, Brian, if you help me out here, it's...
This is right back here.
Right. Paul, if you go back to the previous screen that we were on, it shows a little bit better because I want to see it in relation to Bonnie Brae. It's the parcel between the yellow line and the blue line. You can see that it encapsulates, it is the one that abuts Bonnie Brae to the west. Parcel 6 of what will be DP 15, if this is approved, has no access to Bonnie Brae. What you see on page 14, where I'm looking like third paragraph down under bullet point number 1, it says there shall be complete access control to Bonnie Brae along the west and north boundaries of parcels 6 and 7. Other access controls are indicated on the plan. The reason it's scratched out of parcel 6 is that that's the parcel that's moving or being requested to move to DP 15. There's still access control along the west and north boundaries of parcel 7, which is the one that actually abuts Bonnie Brae. So this does not allow access to Bonnie Brae. If there was a concern that somehow by deleting parcel 6 out of 116, that parcel 6 of what would be DP 15, which is the applicant's property, there could be a provision added to DP 15 parcel 6 as noted in your attachments to have access control along the west side, so no access is to Bonnie Brae. That could be there to clear up any confusion of whether or not access would be allowed. The way I look at this in terms of how DP 116 is written and how that language would stay with the amendment is that parcel 7 is the one that is in between them, and that still retains its access control, not allowing access to Bonnie Brae.
Thank you. Any other questions of the agent? Not, we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
I'll bring it back to the commission now for discussion and action.
I'd like to move to approve CUP DP-116 per staff comments.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Foster and second from Mr. Aldrich. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we need to go on.
I would like to
We need
move,
to do four separate actions on
Yep.
this, correct?
yes. Oh, all right.
You're
I would
on a
like,
roll, go.
I would like to move that we approve CUP DP-48 per staff comments.
Second.
Okay, I think Mr. Green got the second on that. and Foster made the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. I would like to move that we approve CUP DP-15 per staff comments.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Foster and a second by who?
Williams Bay and
William-
Miles kind of simultaneously.
I'll let you flip a coin on that. How about if we go with Miles? Okay, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. I would like to move that we approve the zone change from GC General Commercial to LC Limited, no, I'm sorry, the other way around, from LC Limited Commercial to GC General Commercial as requested per staff comments.
Second.
We have a motion by Foster, second by Mr. Williams Bay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have one more case to hear, and it was somebody that I think is present or was on agenda item number 3. Is our applicant still here?
Yes, she is. Sir, if you will, I will just do a brief overview and reminder. I'm not going to go through the whole staff report, but it's been a bit since we've did the original presentation. So this again is up at 21st and Waco. The property is unlimited commercial. The request is for a conditional use for a nightclub in the city. We have the understanding it's an event center, and the term nightclub in the city would be an accessory use to event center. And there are conditions of approval in your staff report, including that provision of it being accessory to the event center. There's hours of operation till 8 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. The event center can operate outside of those hours of operation if there's no entertainment. And that there would be no outdoor music or alcohol consumption on the site. And if you have any additional questions for me, just for clarification, I'll stand for them at this time. Otherwise, I think we can move along and have the applicant provide her testimony.
Okay, with that, I will call on the applicant to come forward. State your name and address. You have 10 minutes.
My name is Leticia Lopez. My address is 2055 North Mosley, and I am with RDX Rental Properties. We bought this property as an investment. It was the former Channel 8 PBS place. We haven't had a good buyer yet, but we've had a lot of people call in to see if they can have a one-day 24-hour rental, or not 24-hour, but 12-hour rental, go in, decorate and stuff. So for meanwhile, I would like to see if I could have that to get a little bit of income coming in until we find a serious buyer. We've had one or two big companies that want to come in, an auto parts company, but nothing final. So I don't like the word nightclub, but it's more like a birthday party celebrations, kids parties, something small. I'm new at this, so I'm not sure.
Any questions of the applicant, Mr. Foster?
Yep, ma'am, have you reviewed all of staff recommendations and comments?
I have,
And do you support an
Yes,
agreement?
I have a question on the Friday and Saturday, 11 PM. Does that mean like the clients would have to be out of the property by 11, so, or ends at 11 and then have cleaning? That, I didn't understand what that meant.
So the hours of operation are intended for entertainment, so to be if there was a DJ or
Oh,
live
okay.
music or something, those are only, that's what the hours of operation apply to. If you have an event that doesn't have that, then those are not the hours of operation.
Okay.
So it would not have to end at 11. The only thing that would have to end at 11 on Friday and Saturday would be the time at which the band has to stop playing
okay.
or the DJ has to stop playing or something like that.
Or alcohol had to quit being served also.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Foster.
Do you know who owns the fence, the existing 6-foot privacy fence on the north side of both the building property and the parking lot? Is that on your property or is it on the neighbor's property
That's
to the north?
ours.
All right, thank you. That helps. That clarifies things.
I just want to clarify that you understand the noise level requirements because this building is located, 27 foot from a residence? And I always have concerns about the proximity of an event center to a residence because sometimes we have families live in those residences. Their kids want to go to, they want their kids to go to bed at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night or a Friday night or whatever. And the music from event centers can be pretty loud.
Yes, yes, and I reviewed that. That's something that I'm gonna be considering. Like I said, I don't think we would have like live bands. There's not very much room or stuff, but it could be a consideration and I would do my best to address those issues if they come up,
Seeing no members of the public left, I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve per staff comment.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Green, second by Ms. Foster. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
With that, my final comments are, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.